Chapter 16:22. 3 days later, in the temporary meeting hall of Little Rock Village, Nye Tian sat on one side of the hall, while Yin Tian sat on the main seat. Opposite Nye Tian sat a skinny old man. It was the Demon Dragon King, Ming Hui. "Thank you for coming, Elder Ming." Nye Tian smiled faintly at Ming Hui and bowed slightly to express his gratitude. The matter in Little Rock Village was almost settled. The people from the Green Wolf Fort were all killed, without exception. This wasn't because Nye Tian was cruel. It was because these bandits killed too many innocent villagers. If he didn't kill them, how could he let those who died down? Ming Hui's appearance here was because Nye Tian asked Yao Chun to find him. Ming Hui coming here was indeed giving Nye Tian a lot of face. One should know that the Demon Dragon King hadn't left the Demon Dragon City for tens of thousands of years. This time, it was mostly because of Nye Tian's invitation. "Nye Tian, why did you call this old man here?" Ming Hui was very straightforward and asked. "Elder Ming, this time, I called you here because I have something I need your help with." Nye Tian faintly smiled. He flipped his palm, and a scroll appeared. He handed it to Ming Hui and said, "Elder Ming, please take a look at this divine array scroll." Ming Hui received the scroll and used his divine sense to check it. His expression suddenly changed. His pupils shrank and his body slightly trembled. "Teacher, are you all right?" Yao Chun could not help but be stunned when he saw Ming Hui's reaction. He asked in a startled voice. He, of course, knew Ming Hui's identity. He had never seen such an expression from the latter. Ming Hui took a deep breath, and his expression recovered a bit. He waved his hand to indicate that he was fine. However, his eyes were on Nye Tian, and he asked, "Nye Tian, where did you get this divine array scroll?" Ming Hui was a formation master. He felt that the divine array scroll Nye Tian gave him had a very powerful aura. It was definitely a 9th rank divine array, or even a saint rank one. Any formation master who got their hands on such a scroll would go crazy. A friend of mine carved this. It's just a formation diagram. It can't be activated. Nye Tian faintly smiled and said, "Fat, come out." Fat Cat's figure appeared on Nye Tian's shoulder. It chuckled and looked slyly at Ming Hui. "You can see the power of this formation scroll. Very good. Looks like you're a 7th rank divine formation master or above. Not bad too. Mid-stage paramount god. You'll take care of the rest." When Ming Hui saw an exaggeratedly fat cat suddenly appear on Nye Tian's shoulder, his eyes couldn't help but tremble. When he heard the little fat cat's words, his expression couldn't help but become sluggish again. With just one look, little fat cat was able to guess his strength and formation mastery. This kind of perceptive ability was really impressive. Ming Hui was a super old monster who had lived for more than 600,000 years. It was the first time someone talked to him like this, and this person was a cat. Ming Hui was a super old monster who had lived for more than 600,000 years. This was the first time someone had spoken to him like this, and this person was a cat, which made him extremely unhappy. Teacher, Yang Zhongxiu, who was behind Nye Tian, bowed deeply and called out respectfully. Fat Cat nodded and looked at Ming Hui. "You used to be the king of the Demon Dragon clan, but the Demon Dragon's heart has left your body. So the little guy beside you is the real Demon Dragon King. Am I right?" Ming Hui frowned, but his expression calmed down. He looked at Nye Tian and said, "Nye Tian, is this the friend you're talking about?" Nye Tian smiled awkwardly. Ming Hui clearly misunderstood and thought that he had told Fat Cat about him. Actually, Nye Tian didn't say anything. He only said that Ming Hui was a friend. As for the rest, it was Fat Cat who saw it. The formation was drawn by me. Little Fat Cat snickered as it floated over. Grabbing the scroll with its paws, it opened it up and a powerful array formation aura gushed out. Boundless light flashed in the air as a huge array formation started to take shape. This is the Earth Vein formation. You must have a lot of questions in your heart. Say them. Fat Cat laughed and looked at Ming Hui with a provocative look. Ming Hui was stunned. He did have a lot of questions about the Earth Vein formation, but it was a little embarrassing for him to ask a cat. It's a rare opportunity for me to explain the formation personally. Fat Cat raised its eyebrows and smiled proudly. Tian was speechless. He knew that Fat Cat had something up her sleeve, but there was no need for her to be so arrogant. Minghui thought for a while. In the end, he couldn't control the doubts in his heart and began to ask some questions about the formation. Fat Cat answered them one by one and explained them in great detail. Tian and the others were confused. They had no idea what Fat Cat was talking about. Minghui and the little Fat Cat talked for a full half an hour, regretting that they hadn't met earlier. Mr. Chinchilla, your formation skills are the best I've seen in my life. Compared to you, the formation masters in the secular world are worlds apart. In the end, Minghui was completely convinced. He was deeply shocked by Fat Cat's formation skills. Tian couldn't help but smile bitterly. Fat Cat did have some tricks up her sleeve. She could make the demonic Dragon King bow down to her. Brother Minghui, your formation skills are not bad. I'll give you this formation scroll. Fat Cat smiled proudly and said, also, I have a big gift for you. Mr. Chinchilla, this. Minghui's hands were trembling as he held the formation scroll. His excitement was indescribable. Fat Cat laughed and turned to look at Tian. Tian, where's the other scroll? Tian took a step forward. Another scroll appeared in his hand, and he passed it to Minghui. Minghui felt the aura of the scroll in his hand. His expression changed again. He was astonished and immediately froze. Brother Minghui, this is a god formation scroll. I want you to build a great 9 dragons formation according to the information on the formation scroll. Fat Cat said arrogantly. It was basically ordering Minghui. Great 9 dragons formation. This was a formation that Fat Cat had researched these few days. It was used to absorb the Mother Earth's origin energy in the 9 dragons' earth veins. However, Fat Cat only had formation skills, but her strength was limited. She couldn't build the formation herself. Therefore, she needed a formation master who was strong enough. Tian thought of Minghui and called the latter over. Originally, Tian wanted to ask Minghui for help. Looking at Minghui's excited reaction, it was as if he had gained a great advantage. It made people speechless. Brother Chinchilla, thank you for your trust in me. Minghui held the scroll in his hand. His eyes were trembling. Even the way he addressed Fat Cat changed. Tian frowned. Fat Cat was really incredible. She was crazy about taking in followers. Previously, she already had a follower, Tian. Now, there was another Minghui. Moreover, the identities of these 2 followers were very terrifying. One was once a strong practitioner at the peak of Sword Dao, and the other was once the demonic Dragon King. They were really scary. Chapter 16:23. In the hall, Minghui was extremely excited. He kept the 2 formation scrolls and asked, Brother Chinchilla, when do we start building the Great 9 Dragons formation? Building the Great 9 Dragons formation is your business. I won't be participating. Fat Cat laughed and said, the Earth Vein formation map will help you find the entrance to the 9 Dragons Earth Palace. As for the materials needed to build the formation, the 9 Dragons formation map has them. It should be a piece of cake for you. I'm building the formation alone? Minghui was stunned. He guessed that the Great 9 Dragons formation was at least a rank 8 god formation. It was indeed difficult for him to build it alone. Believe in yourself. It's just a quasi-rank 9 god formation. You can definitely build it. Fat Cat chuckled. He and Tian were pressed for time. Building the Great 9 Dragons formation would take at least a few months or even years. Tian couldn't wait that long. Once the Great 9 Dragons formation was built, it would be able to continuously absorb Mother Earth energy from the 9 Dragons' earth veins. Martial artists could absorb the purest Mother Earth energy in the formation and convert it into their own power. Their cultivation speed would be tens or even hundreds of times faster than outside. But that kind of cultivation speed wasn't very attractive to Tian. What he needed was a faster cultivation speed. Moreover, he had the earth vein source. Absorbing the power within would allow his cultivation to be twice as fast. The Great 9 Dragons formation was prepared for Tian and the rest. Minghui saw the encouragement in Fat Cat's eyes and nodded heavily like a disciple. The Great 9 Dragons formation consumed large amounts of spiritual materials. But Ming Hui had a disciple of the Medicine King Palace Master. The entire Medicine King Palace would support him, so he didn't have to worry about spiritual materials. Big Brother Chinchilla, if you have time, I would like to discuss something about arrays with you. I don't know if I have the honor? Ming Hui bowed and spoke with a respectful look. Well, this little fat cat smiled awkwardly, feeling a little awkward. He and yet Tian planned to leave the next day, because they had more important things to attend to. Fatty, since Elder Ming has invited us, let's stay for a few more days. Niet Tian smiled faintly. After all, he was the one who invited Ming Hui over. If he didn't even satisfy this request, it wouldn't be justifiable. All right, then we'll leave in 3 days. The fat cat laughed and said, It just so happens that there are some things about the great formation of the 9 dragons that I need to explain to you. Thank you, Big Brother Chinchilla. Ming Hui was so excited that he couldn't control himself. He nodded repeatedly to express his thanks. Next, Niet Tian and the others left, while Fat Cat temporarily followed Ming Hui. Fat Cat did not rely on Niet Tian's celestial and demon nascent embryo space. It was only because he was worried about being detected by the main body that he rarely left the nascent embryo space. Niet Tian chose a small courtyard that was not far from Ming Hui and Fat Cat. If Fat Cat sensed that something was wrong, it would be able to enter the origin fetus space immediately. Niet Tian returned to the courtyard and entered his room. He had made up his mind to leave this place very soon. The most important thing that he had to do next was to fuse with the earth vein source. Fat Cat said that Niet Tian's current strength was too weak. If he were to forcefully fuse with the earth vein source, there would be a certain degree of danger. His demonic aura might not be able to withstand the power of the earth vein source and eventually explode. Niet Tian dared not take this risk. Therefore, he needed to borrow some other things to help him fuse with the earth vein source. As for what these things were, Fat Cat did not say. Their next step was to search for the things that could help Niet Tian fuse with the earth vein source. I wonder what realm my strength will reach after fusing with the earth vein source. Hopefully, it will rise to High God realm. Niet Tian murmured with a faint smile. He was currently a late-stage mid-god. The speed at which his strength was improving was already extremely monstrous. But for him, this speed was still not fast enough. He needed to be faster. When he thought of Mo, Rushi, and Cher, one in the Nye family's ancestral land, and the other in the inescapable net, Niet Tian couldn't help but feel worried. Cher's situation in particular worried Niet Tian even more. Although he knew that the inescapable net would not harm Cher, he was worried about Cher's true identity. If she regained her memories, would she still be the same as before? Niet Tian still didn't know the relationship between Cher and the Netherworld Emperor. He had asked Fat Cat about it, but the latter had evaded the question and did not answer him in detail. Back when he was underground, Niet Tian encountered Lian Jiufeng, a person who bore a great resemblance to Cher. Lian Jiufeng was also an incarnation of the Netherworld Emperor and was accompanied by an ancestral dragon. What kind of person was the Netherworld Emperor? How could a single incarnation be so powerful? Niet Tian even suspected that the Netherworld Emperor had many incarnations. If the Netherworld Emperor were to awaken one day, would his incarnations disappear into thin air? Or would they be summoned back to his main body? A look of determination appeared in Niet Tian's eyes as he said inwardly, Sure, I don't care who you are or what you look like. You'll always be the Shui I knew. What puzzled Niet Tian was the tear of the princess. Even now, he still didn't know what the tear of the princess was. The tear of the princess always saved his life when he was in the most dangerous situation. Ever since he activated the tear of the princess's protection last time, Niet Tian couldn't sense the tear of the princess's existence anymore. It was as if the tear of the princess had become a part of him and could not be sensed. It would only appear when he was in danger. Is the tear of the princess really that important to the ancient Ming race? Niet Tian frowned and murmured to himself. Lian Jiufeng had come back, mainly for the tear of the princess. He kept emphasizing that Niet Tian didn't know what the tear of the princess was, and he didn't know what the tear of the princess meant. It seemed that the tear of the princess was very important. Otherwise, Lian Jiufeng wouldn't have bothered him. Of course, Nie Tian knew that the reason Lian Jiufeng hadn't fought him before was because he was afraid of destroying the tear of the princess. Lian Jiufeng was far stronger than Cher, and he seemed to know a lot of things. This puzzled Nie Tian. Did Lian Jiufeng recover some of his memories? Nie Tian thought. His eyes flashed. Lian Jiufeng had always been trapped in the door of golden flames. He had never left. How did he create the veins of 3 lives? How did he increase his strength? And how did he know so many things? This was too strange. Let's not think about this for now. Lian Jiufeng won't give up on the tear of the princess. He'll come looking for me again. Nie Tian sighed softly. If he saw Lian Jiufeng again, he would definitely get to the bottom of this. Now it's time to look at the other things. At this moment, Nie Tian seemed to have thought of something and couldn't help but smile. His eyes were filled with a hint of excitement as he flipped his palm and 3 scrolls appeared in his hand. Chapter 1624. In the room, Nie Tian looked at the 3 scrolls in his hands, his eyes shining with anticipation. The scrolls in his hands were the Yun clan's forbidden technique scrolls that Yun Qing had given him. In the past, the Yun clan had relied on these 3 great forbidden techniques to become a peak-level aristocratic family. Nie Tian guessed that the underground palace in the 9 Dragons, Earth Vein, and even the Earth Vein Grand Formation that protected the Earth Vein source were probably built by the Yun clan. One could imagine how terrifying the forbidden techniques of such a powerful aristocratic family were. Fat Cat had just broken the seal on the forbidden technique scrolls and directly handed them to Nie Tian. He didn't even open them himself. Nie Tian took out the first scroll, the Dragon Inscription Talisman Scroll, and slowly opened it. His hands were slightly trembling. The Forbidden Technique Scroll had been sealed by the ancestors of the Yun clan, and it was estimated that no one had opened it for at least 1,000,000 years. The Dragon Inscription Talisman Scroll was slowly opened, and an ancient aura slowly gushed out. Suddenly, a powerful Forbidden Technique rune power released a strange aura that enveloped the entire room. Nie Tian sensed a powerful and frightening power surging into the scroll. His heart shuddered, and his body trembled. On the Dragon Inscription Talisman Scroll, black dragon-shaped runes surged like small tadpoles, extremely strange. Nie Tian let out a long breath, and his divine sense tried to sense the dragon-shaped runes. Suddenly, a violent dark power rushed into his divine sense, turning into a black dragon shadow, as if it wanted to swallow his divine sense. Nie Tian's mind moved, and the holographic divine runes formed a spiritual barrier, blocking the black dragon shadow. His forehead was filled with sweat. He didn't expect the Forbidden Technique rune to be so strange, and also have the terrifying power to swallow divine sense. If it wasn't for his strong mental power and the holographic divine runes, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Nie Tian took a deep breath and calmed down a lot. He began to carefully sense the information of the Dragon Inscription Talisman. According to the Dragon Inscription Talisman Scroll, the Dragon Inscription Talisman had a strong effect on a cultivator's bloodline power, and at the same time, it contained a terrifying power. When the talisman was activated, the cultivator's strength would temporarily increase by several realms. The Dragon Inscription Talisman was strictly divided into 4 levels: Heaven, Earth Profound, and Yellow. Each level was further divided into 3 levels: Intermediate, High, and Intermediate. Nie Tian sensed the Dragon Inscription Talisman in his body, and it seemed to be only High Yellow, which was already not bad. The scroll also recorded that the Dragon Mark Forbidden Talisman had a strong backlash. The stronger the talisman, the stronger the backlash. Not even peak paramount gods had ever been able to cultivate such talismans to the heaven step level. They were so powerful that not even peak paramount gods would be able to handle them. Even Clan's ancestor, who had cultivated the talisman, Tian, heaven-level talisman. It was precisely because of the powerful backlash from the Dragon Inscription Talisman that the Yun family's people who cultivated in talismans had a much shorter lifespan than their peers. Most of them died young. What a terrifying dragon inscription talisman. Nietian had a basic understanding of the dragon mark forbidden talisman. He couldn't help but frown, and his eyes flickered. Not even peak paramount gods could withstand a heaven-grade dragon mark hexing talisman. The backlash from the forbidden talisman is far too strong. No wonder the Yun clan's ancestor sealed the forbidden technique scroll. Nietian mumbled to himself as the corner of his lips involuntarily curled up. If that's the case, then he'll be able to benefit from it. Nietian didn't know why his supreme dragon vein didn't suffer any backlash when it accepted the dragon mark forbidden talisman. Could it be because of the tier of princess? Nietian speculated. It was probably related to the tier of princess. If the tier of the princess could allow him to ignore the backlash of the dragon inscription talisman, then it would truly be too terrifying. Let's not worry about that for now. Nietian thought hard for a long time, but to no avail. He decided to stop thinking about it, and said with a faint smile, "Since my body didn't suffer any backlash, doesn't it mean that I can cultivate the dragon mark forbidden talisman to the heaven grade? That's great." It was hard to imagine how much a dragon mark forbidden talisman of heaven grade or higher would increase Nietian's strength. The dragon mark forbidden talisman in my body is now at the high grade yellow rank. The last time I activated it, my strength increased from mid-stage mid-god to peak mid-god, which is 2 small realms higher. When the dragon mark forbidden talisman's level increases, the increase in strength will be even greater. Nietian calculated in his heart and couldn't help but smile. He couldn't wait to cultivate the dragon mark forbidden talisman. However, he temporarily suppressed his excitement because he had 2 more forbidden technique scrolls in his hand. Next, Nietian opened the other forbidden technique scroll, the forbidden dragon bloodline scroll. Nietian couldn't help but gasp when he sensed the forbidden dragon bloodline scroll. He was so surprised that he couldn't speak for a while. The forbidden dragon bloodline was even more powerful than the dragon mark forbidden talisman. It could directly change the power of the cultivator's bloodline and create a new and powerful bloodline, the forbidden dragon bloodline. According to the scroll, after cultivating the forbidden dragon bloodline, the cultivator's body would produce a kind of power called the forbidden dragon power. This power was a double-edged sword. While it could increase the cultivator's strength, it could also put great pressure on the cultivator's martial body. The former village chief of Little Rock Village, Yun Qing, died because of the forbidden dragon power. Nietian thought for a while. He wasn't in a hurry. He put away the forbidden dragon bloodline scroll and looked at the last scroll, forbidden dragon soulbone. As soon as he opened the forbidden dragon soulbone scroll, Nietian immediately felt an unusually strong spiritual force directly bombarding his divine sense. Fortunately, he was prepared. He increased the spiritual barrier of the holographic divine runes to protect his divine sense. After opening the forbidden dragon soulbone scroll, Nietian sensed the information within and discovered that the forbidden dragon soulbone could transform a cultivator's soul and bones. It was even more terrifying than the forbidden dragon bloodline. After understanding the forbidden dragon soulbone scroll, Nietian put away the scroll. At this time, he discovered that the Yun family's 3 great forbidden techniques, the dragon mark forbidden talisman, the forbidden dragon bloodline, and the forbidden dragon soulbone, were all stronger than the last. The dragon mark forbidden talisman stimulated the power of the bloodline. The forbidden dragon bloodline changed the bloodline and created the bloodline, and the forbidden dragon soulbone built the soul and bones. If a cultivator cultivated the 3 great forbidden techniques at the same time, they would have a comprehensive improvement. From the martial body to the soul, from the bloodline to the bones, there would be a qualitative leap. But cultivating the 3 great forbidden techniques at the same time would be a great threat to a cultivator's martial body. The 3 great forbidden techniques each had an extremely strong backlash. If they were used together, it was easy to imagine how strong the backlash would be. Nietian also learned some other information from the forbidden technique scroll. It was a cultivation experience left behind by a cultivator who had cultivated the forbidden techniques in the past. It was recorded that no one had ever cultivated the three great forbidden techniques at the same time. Even a cultivator with a naturally strong martial body could only withstand the suppression of two forbidden techniques at the same time. Moreover, their lifespan would be reduced again. After understanding this, Nietian couldn't help but hesitate. He naturally wanted to cultivate the three great forbidden techniques at the same time. However, whether his martial body could withstand the backlash of the three great forbidden techniques was unknown. Chapter 16:25. In the room, Nietian was deep in thought. With his current strength, directly cultivating the forbidden dragon bloodline and forbidden dragon soulbone seemed impossible. However, he could try to cultivate the forbidden dragon bloodline first. However, he did not know how dangerous this would be, making him hesitate. Nietian, I think you shouldn't take the risk. At this time, Indra's voice suddenly sounded. The power of these three forbidden techniques is extremely rare. Although your martial body is different from ordinary people, your strength is still a bit weak. Why don't you try to cultivate the other two forbidden techniques when you reach the level of a lord? Indra's tone was sincere. It was obvious that he was thinking about Nietian's safety. The level of a lord. Nietian sighed softly and said, I only have the strength of a late-stage mid-god now. I don't know when I can reach the level of a lord. The earlier I cultivate the three forbidden techniques, the greater the improvement to a martial artist. I don't want to give up this opportunity. In his previous life, Nietian was a crazy person. This could be seen from how he fought without regard for anything else. In his previous life, he had entered the various forbidden areas of the Heaven Realm and obtained the primal star stones from the forbidden areas. Now, there were three such powerful scrolls in front of him, but they didn't let him cultivate them. This was really too torturous. Nietian, what do you want to do? Indra suddenly realized that Nietian's eyes were slowly becoming firm. He couldn't help but cry out, Indra, if you were me, would you give up such an opportunity? The corner of Nietian's mouth pulled into a strange smile. He then opened the forbidden dragon bloodline scroll. Nietian, don't be impulsive. Wait for Boss Chinchilla to come back and discuss it with him. Indra suddenly realized that Nietian was going to cultivate the forbidden dragon bloodline directly. He couldn't help but cry out again. No need. Nietian smiled faintly and then opened the forbidden dragon bloodline scroll. With a thought, the runes on the scroll began to surge. They actually became violent in an instant and turned into a terrifying power that circulated into space. Forbidden dragon bloodline, come. Nietian's gaze was filled with determination. He roared, and the forbidden dragon bloodline runes entered his body. At this moment, a tearing pain assaulted his entire body, causing Nietian to involuntarily let out a sharp cry. Nietian was an extremely patient person. He didn't care about ordinary pain at all. Now that he was screaming, it must be because the pain was unimaginable. Boom! In the next moment, the forbidden dragon bloodline that had entered Nietian's body was like a ferocious beast, rampaging through his limbs and meridians as if it wanted to tear his body apart. A dash! Nietian couldn't bear the pain and couldn't help but let out an even more mournful cry. His delicate face had already become sinister, and his silver hair was flying in the air. He seemed to have gone mad. Nietian felt that the power crazily pounding against his body, as if it wanted to seep into his blood and meridians. Hiss, hiss, hiss. Immediately after, an extremely ear-piercing sound came from Nietian's body. Horrifying bloody wounds appeared on his body, and his entire body was instantly riddled with holes. It was an extremely frightening sight. Tian sensed the changes in Nietian's body and couldn't help but gasp. He was completely stunned. An extremely bloody scene was happening in Nietian's body. His meridians, flesh, and blood were being crushed by the forbidden dragon bloodline runes bit by bit. The inside of his body had almost become a sea of blood. The forbidden dragon bloodline runes were actually tearing his body apart. Nietian's entire body was twisted. His mouth was wide open, but not a single sound came out. Bang! At this time, The door was pushed open by a huge force. Fat Cat's figure appeared. Seeing the badly mutilated Nyetian, his face couldn't help but darken. He cried out strangely, "What's going on?" Fat Cat wasn't far away. Hearing Nyetian scream, he and Ming Hui rushed over. "Boss Chinchilla, Nyetian has cultivated the forbidden dragon bloodline." Disher Tian's voice sounded. He immediately turned into a soul shadow and appeared in midair. He said with a trembling voice. Ming Hui, who was watching from the side, was stunned. He didn't expect that there was a remnant soul in Nyetian's body. Moreover, this remnant soul was very terrifying. Fat Cat was stunned for a moment. Then he saw that the Forbidden Dragon Bloodline scroll was releasing waves of runes that were frantically pouring into Nyetian's body. He immediately understood everything. He sensed the Forbidden Dragon Bloodline scroll and had a preliminary understanding of the Forbidden Dragon Bloodline. At this time, Nyetian let out another scream. His whole body couldn't hold on any longer. It seemed that he could turn into a pool of flesh and blood at any time. "Boss Chinchilla, what should we do?" Seeing this, Di Shirtian asked in shock. "Ming Hui, you guard outside. Don't let anyone near the courtyard." Fat Cat turned around and said to Ming Hui. The latter nodded and walked out of the room. Fat Cat closed the door and frowned. His brain was spinning rapidly as if he was thinking about something. "Boss Chinchilla, quickly think of a way. Nyetian can't hold on any longer." Di Shirtian saw that the wounds on Nyetian's body were increasing and couldn't help but urge. Fat Cat shook his head slightly, indicating for Di Shirtian to calm down. He said, "The Forbidden Dragon Bloodline originally destroyed a martial artist's original bloodline and created a new bloodline. This process is extremely painful. Most people can't bear it. Nyetian has the Supreme Dragon Bloodline in his body and the 10th Origin Vein Star Origin Stone. His recovery ability is very strong. His bloodline can be recreated very quickly. He won't be in any danger." The Forbidden Dragon Bloodline changed the bloodline to create a new bloodline. This was a process of rebirth after destruction, just like a phoenix's nirvana. Ordinary martial artists definitely couldn't bear it and would be directly destroyed by the Forbidden Dragon Bloodline rune. However, Nyetian's martial body was strong. While his bloodline was destroyed, it was also constantly regenerating. Although this process was very painful, his life wasn't in danger. "Nyetian is fine?" Di Shirtian was stunned and surprised. Then he saw that Fat Cat seemed to be thinking about something and had a very hesitant look. He couldn't help but ask, "Boss Chinchilla, since Nyetian is fine, what are you still worried about?" Nyetian wasn't in any danger. This made Di Shirtian feel relieved, but Fat Cat's expression made him a little uneasy. The Forbidden Dragon Bloodline destroyed Nyetian's original meridians and constructed a new bloodline. This process is very difficult. This deity is considering whether to let him absorb the rune power of the other Forbidden Technique scroll. Fat Cat looked at Nyetian with flickering eyes and said solemnly. He wasn't worried about Nyetian's life being in danger, but he was considering whether to let Nyetian absorb the Forbidden Dragon Soul Bone or not. This, Di Shirtian's pupils suddenly shrank, and he said in astonishment, "Boss Chinchilla, you're not joking, right?" A Forbidden Dragon bloodline had already tortured Nyetian to this state. If the Forbidden Dragon Soul Bone was added, could Nyetian still bear it? Does this deity look like he's joking? Fat Cat glared at Di Shirtian snappily. He was also considering Nyetian's safety. Fat Cat knew that if it was just the Forbidden Dragon bloodline, Nyetian could completely bear it. But if the Forbidden Dragon Soul Bone was added, then it wasn't necessarily so. But if he absorbed the Forbidden Dragon Soul Bone rune at this time, it could make the 3 forbidden techniques perfectly fuse in Nyetian's body. At the same time, the bloodline would be rebuilt, and the soul bone would also be reshaped. This would be of great benefit to Nyetian's future path of cultivation. It would make his martial body and soul undergo a qualitative transformation. There weren't many opportunities for this. Nyetian's divine sense was a little blurred at this time, and it seemed that he might faint at any time. In this case, Fat Cat had to make the decision for him. Chapter 16:26. Fat Cat looked at Niet Tian, who was in extreme pain, and his blue eyes flickered with a strange light. He wondered what Niet Tian would do if he were in Niet Tian's shoes and encountered such an opportunity. For Niet Tian, this was an excellent opportunity. The rune of the Forbidden Dragon bloodline destroyed his meridians and reconstructed them. Fusing with the rune of the Forbidden Dragon soul bone at this time would help Niet Tian perfectly fuse the power of the three great Forbidden Technique runes. In fact, with Niet Tian's physique, if he fused with the bloodline of the Forbidden Dragon first, and then fused with the Forbidden Dragon soul bone after his strength increased, there wouldn't be any danger, but it would be more painful. But if he fused with the Forbidden Dragon soul bone in the future, the effect would definitely not be as good as now, and it would be far inferior. Niet Tian, I will make a choice for you once. I believe that the divine demon nascent embryo body will not disappoint. Fat Cat said faintly. His flickering eyes suddenly became firm, and he slowly opened the scroll of the Forbidden Dragon soul bone in his hand. Boss Chinchilla, are you really going to... Sakura saw Fat Cat open the scroll of the Forbidden Dragon soul bone and was stunned, and he couldn't say the rest of his words. He didn't expect that Fat Cat actually wanted to let Niet Tian fuse with the power of the Forbidden Dragon soul bone. Fusing two great forbidden techniques at the same time, could Niet Tian's martial body withstand it? Don't talk nonsense. Go back to the nascent embryo space and check on the condition of Niet Tian's martial body at any time. Fat Cat's eyes were firm, and he couldn't help but look a little nervous, and said cold. This time, it was not only related to the life and death of Niet Tian, but also related to the life and death of Fat Cat and Sakura. If Niet Tian died, Sakura's soul would definitely fly away, and although Fat Cat had no direct connection with Niet Tian, he would soon be found by Nine-Tailed Chinchilla after he lost the protection of the divine demon nascent embryo space. At that time, he would also end up dead. More importantly, Niet Tian was connected to a very complicated group of forces. If he died, the Wind and Cloud Alliance, the Holy Parliament, and the nets above snares below would all be affected. Fat Cat firmly believed that as long as Niet Tian was alive, he would definitely be someone who would fight against the 9 calamity deities and even the Emperor of the Netherworld. In truth, the one he was most wary of was not the 9 gods of calamity, but the Emperor of the Netherworld. If the Emperor of the Netherworld were to come back to life, he would be a catastrophe for the 9 realms. Fat Cat was anxious to increase Niet Tian's strength. Her primary goal was to deal with the 9 gods of calamity, but her final goal was the Emperor of the Netherworld, who was still in the process of resurrection. Cher and Lion Jiufeng had appeared. This was the sign of the Emperor of the Netherworld's rebirth. Thinking of this, Fat Cat no longer hesitated, and the look in her eyes became even more resolute. With a thought, she activated the Forbidden Technique runes on the Forbidden Dragon soul bone and sent them into Niet Tian's body. The dark runes frantically surged and rapidly seeped into Niet Tian's body. The sudden, intense pain caused Niet Tian to howl in pain again. His face had already become so twisted that it was almost impossible to tell that he was human. He felt as if his body was being bitten by thousands of ants and insects, slowly devouring his body. Niet Tian, you have to hold on. Fat Cat's resolute eyes couldn't help but tremble when she saw how much pain Niet Tian was in. This time, the blockage was too great. Even Fat Cat couldn't maintain her composure. Boss Chinchilla, Niet Tian's consciousness is slowly weakening. At this moment, Sakura Heaven's voice rang out, and there was great panic in his voice. The 2 great Forbidden Technique runes combined with the Dragon Mark talisman that originally existed in Niet Tian's body not only destroyed Niet Tian's meridians, flesh, and blood, but also dealt a great blow to his consciousness. Keep him awake. Fat Cat's face changed, and then she roared in a low voice. This! Sakura Heaven saw Fat Cat's reaction and couldn't help but stare blankly. Since coming out of the Glazed Pagoda, Fat Cat had never been so abnormal. Sakura Heaven, if Niet Tian's consciousness collapses, he will definitely die. Fat Cat roared, but the forbidden dragon soul bone scroll in her hand was constantly releasing the forbidden technique runes. Sakura Heaven immediately reacted and released the soul power of his whole body to protect Nietion's consciousness. Nietion, you must stay awake. Sakura Heaven endured the spiritual impact of the forbidden technique runes, but he desperately shouted to remind Nietion to stay awake. Nietion's consciousness at this time was very blurred and was already on the verge of collapse. He felt that he was having a very, very long nightmare. He dreamed that he fell into a bottomless abyss and his body was out of his control. He wanted to struggle, but the more he struggled, the deeper he fell. Nietion, hold on, it's going to end soon, Fat Cat said nervously while releasing the forbidden technique runes and sensing Nietion's consciousness. He couldn't stop at this time. Since he had already gambled, he must gamble to the end. Boss Chinchilla, I can't hold on anymore. At this moment, Sakura Heaven howled miserably, and then his soul trembled. His phantom was actually almost scattered by the spiritual impact. He was originally a remnant soul, so he was afraid of this kind of spiritual impact. Fat Cat's eyes suddenly trembled. He knew that Sakura Heaven had already tried his best. If he persisted any longer, his remnant soul would collapse. Almost at the same time, the forbidden technique scroll in Fat Cat's hand finally stopped releasing the forbidden technique runes. Nietion, it's up to you now. Fat Cat let out a long breath, and then his figure moved, entering the origin embryo space. At this time, the space of the fiend god nascent embryo was dark. Endless black runes surged from all directions, as if they wanted to devour the space. Sakura Heaven, hide in the sea of gods and demons. Fat Cat glanced at the sea of gods and demons in the origin embryo space and said to Sakura Heaven. Then his body shook, and he released endless color glass chi to resist the impact of the forbidden technique runes. Nietion's other meridians, flesh, bones, and even his yuan meridians could be reconstructed, but the origin embryo space must not be destroyed. Even the forbidden dragon bloodline couldn't recreate the origin embryo space. At the same time, Nietion's consciousness became weaker and weaker. He felt like he had fallen into an abyss, surrounded by endless darkness and despair. Nietion. Fat Cat felt that Nietion's consciousness was about to disappear. He couldn't help but scream, and his body couldn't help but tremble. It seemed like he had lost the gamble this time. Nietion's consciousness weakened rapidly and was about to collapse. Nietion. At this time, Nietion heard a voice in the endless darkness. It was a very familiar voice, Cher's voice. Light. Nietion's consciousness suddenly shook, and he saw a weak spot of light appear in the dark void. Then it quickly enlarged and instantly turned into a ball of light, like a person. Cher. Nietion couldn't help but scream when he saw the figure clearly. His almost collapsed consciousness instantly recovered, and he became much more clear-headed. Cher faintly raised the corner of her mouth at him, and with a smile that could topple cities, her figure rose up. Nietion followed Cher's light, and his figure soared into the sky. His consciousness had completely recovered. I can't fail. The instantly sober Nietion immediately reacted. At this time, he was fusing with the forbidden technique runes. His whole body shook, and he let out a low roar. Chapter 16:27. Nietion growled and immediately checked his body. He found that his meridians, flesh, and bones were all destroyed. Even the 9 dragon veins were riddled with holes. Nietion, use your 10th origin meridian to speed up the reconstruction of the forbidden rune. At this time, Fat Cat's voice sounded. He felt that Nietion's consciousness had awakened in an instant and was also very surprised. But at this time, he couldn't care too much. It was more important to let Nietion reconstruct his body as soon as possible. Yes, Nietion nodded heavily. The forbidden rune had destroyed his body, leaving him almost an empty shell, but the 10th origin meridian was not damaged at all. Even the forbidden rune could not threaten the raw star stone. Nietion moved his mind, and the power of the stars gushed out. It was like a warm current that surged in his body and warmed his body that was on the verge of collapse. At the same time, the flame of chaos also slowly seeped out and was actually tempering Nietion's martial body. The flame of chaos was formed by the fusion of the boundary of the universe and the heart of nothingness. The boundary of the universe contained the power of creation. This was an extremely terrifying power of creation, which had a great effect on the reconstruction of the martial body. Slowly, the broken meridians, flesh, and bones were reconstructed little by little. This was the process from nothing to something, from destruction to rebirth. It was like a silkworm turning into a butterfly, waiting for the moment to break out of the cocoon. At this time, Nietion, if seen from the outside, looked very terrifying. His body was covered with bloody wounds, but after those wounds split open, they quickly healed and new skin was formed. Ha ha ha, success! Fat Cat saw that the forbidden rune had disappeared and the space of the celestial demon original embryo had returned to its original state. He couldn't help but shout in surprise and almost jumped up. Boss Chinchilla, did you really succeed? Sakura's figure appeared. His face was a little dull, as if he couldn't believe it. Of course. Fat Cat let out a strange cry and said proudly, Nietion is indeed worthy of being the person that I like. He fused 3 forbidden rune at the same time. No one has ever done it before, and I guess there won't be anyone in the future who can do it. The Fat Cat almost went crazy with excitement. However, at this time, Nietion was having a hard time. Reconstructing his body was not an easy task. The feeling of having his bones broken and then regrowing them was very painful. Fortunately, Nietion had a resolute personality. This kind of pain was nothing to him. At least now, his life was no longer in danger. After Nietion had roughly reconstructed his body, he concentrated the energy of the stars and the primal chaos flame on his 9 elemental meridians. However, this process was very slow. It was not as easy as he had imagined. When the first meridian appeared, Nietion's eyes couldn't help but tremble. This was a dragon-shaped meridian, and it was even closer to the shape of a dragon than the Supreme Dragon Meridian. Moreover, the Dragon Meridian seal was still there. What was even more strange was that the dragon vein was covered with densely packed dragon-shaped inscriptions. It was the Dragon Mark Forbidden Talisman. Nietion sensed that this talisman was even more terrifying than before. It was a very pure power. Next, he continued to reconstruct his elemental meridians. After a few hours, all 9 elemental meridians were reconstructed. They were 9 supreme dragon meridians, and they were even stronger than before. Next, Nietion didn't delay and continued to reconstruct his flesh and bones. Half a day later, not only did his body have an outline, but it also had a complete set of flesh and bones. At this time, before Nietion could say anything, the Fat Cat cried out in surprise, Martial body reconstruction complete. At this time, Nietion's body was releasing a sharp aura. It was as if he had ushered in a rebirth. Nietion suddenly stood up and looked inside his body. At this time, he could clearly feel the existence of the forbidden dragon bloodline in his blood. It was a very mysterious power that surged in his flesh. And on his bones, there were exquisite inscriptions. They were the Forbidden Dragon Soul Bone inscriptions. Among the 3 great Forbidden Technique inscriptions, the Forbidden Dragon Talisman was inscribed on the Supreme Dragon Bloodline. The Forbidden Dragon Bloodline was flowing in his flesh, and the Forbidden Dragon Soul Bone was inscribed on his bones. With the support of the 3 great Forbidden Techniques, Nietion's body had a qualitative improvement. He felt that his whole body was filled with power. He almost couldn't believe his powerful martial body. Fat, I feel that my martial body is several times stronger than before. I'm afraid it's even more terrifying than a peak high god, murmured Nietion after calming down a little. His current strength was that of a late-stage mid-god. But in terms of the strength of his martial body, he was definitely comparable to a peak high god, or even stronger than a peak high god. Nietion felt that the current him, even without activating the forbidden technique, could easily fight against a late-stage high god or even a peak high god. Fat Cat nodded with a smile and said, "The three great forbidden techniques have greatly transformed your martial body. I'm afraid your Supreme Dragon bloodline has also become a lot stronger." Very good. Fat Cat was very satisfied with the changes in Nie Tian's martial body. One must know that Nie Tian had only just fused the three great forbidden techniques. In the future, as his strength increased, his martial body would become more and more terrifying. Fat Cat even felt that if Nie Tian could step into the early-stage Paramount God realm, he would probably be able to fight against a late-stage Paramount God or even a peak Paramount God. Nie Tian nodded with a smile and said, "Fat, thank you for this time. You already know?" Fat Cat was stunned for a moment. Then, he laughed dryly and said, "I bet on your behalf. You won't blame me, right?" "Of course not." Nie Tian laughed and said, "If it were me, I would bet on it too. There aren't many opportunities like this. Judging from the improvement of my martial body with the three great forbidden techniques, it was a good bet." Nie Tian was also a crazy person. He had a strong gambling mentality. Moreover, his luck had always been good. Every time he was in the most dangerous situation, he would always be able to escape. It could only be said that luck was also a part of strength. Nie Tian sensed the three great runes in his body and suddenly found that the other two runes, the Forbidden Dragon Bloodline rune and the Forbidden Dragon Soulbone rune, had actually reached the high yellow class. How strange! Nie Tian was stunned. He had just fused the Forbidden Dragon Bloodline and Forbidden Dragon Soulbone. How could they directly reach the high yellow class? What's so strange about it? Fat Cat laughed strangely and said, "The three runes perfectly fused in your body. The Forbidden Dragon rune is the high yellow class. Of course, the other two runes are also the high yellow class." Nie Tian was stunned for a moment. Then, he said, "So that's how it is." Cultivating three forbidden techniques at the same time was something that even the top geniuses of the ancient Yun family couldn't do. Nie Tian was really strong. What was even more frightening was that the perfect fusion of three forbidden techniques was something that had never happened before. All right. At this time, Nie Tian suddenly thought of something and exclaimed, "I wonder if the three forbidden techniques produced any backlash in my body." No. Before he could check his body, Fat Cat directly responded and frowned. "Your martial body seems to be a little special. When the three forbidden techniques perfectly fused, there was no backlash. Nie Tian absorbed the forbidden technique runes and didn't produce any backlash in his body." Even Fat Cat was surprised about this. Fat Cat knew that even if Nie Tian had the demon origin embryo, he couldn't prevent the backlash. At most, he could resist it. Chapter 1628. There really wasn't any backlash. Nie Tian checked his body and exclaimed in surprise, "What is going on?" Nie Tian, when you were fusing with the runes, your consciousness was clearly on the verge of collapsing. Why did you suddenly regain consciousness? Fat Cat's blue eyes flashed as she asked in confusion. "It's because of Cher." Nie Tian was stunned for a moment before explaining. "At that time, Cher's figure appeared in my consciousness. It was that figure that helped me recover my consciousness." Cher again. Fat Cat's eyes darkened as she fell into thought. Earlier, when he had fought Golden Flame Ancestral Dragon in the depths of the earth, it had been Shui-Er's tear that had protected him. Now, it was Shui-Er's glowing shadow that had appeared and protected his soul awareness. It was obvious that it was the tear of the princess. The legendary tear of the princess, is it really that terrifying? Little Fat Cat frowned and muttered to itself. Fat Cat didn't know much about the tear of the princess. He had only heard that it was one of the three great legends of the ancient Ming race. Other than that, he didn't know much about the tear of the princess. After all, he wasn't a member of the ancient Ming race. It was impossible for him to know their secrets. Judging from Lian Jiufeng's pursuit of the tear of the princess must contain a very important secret. Forget it. I don't want to think so much. It's good that you didn't suffer any backlash. There won't be any obstacles in your future cultivation. Fat Cat couldn't think of anything, so she shook her head with a smile. Yet Tian couldn't do anything about it. If even Fat Cat couldn't guess the reason, then it was even more impossible for him to know the reason. Yet Tian calmed down and said to Socrateon, Socrateon, thank you so much this time. Sakura's soul had almost been destroyed in order to protect his consciousness. He really should thank him. It's my pleasure, my pleasure. Sakura smiled awkwardly. Then he looked at the Fat Cat. He was thinking about when the Fat Cat would help him restore his body, and when she would tell him the secret of advancing to the Sage Realm. Don't worry, I will find a way to help you restore your physical body at the place we're going to next. Fat Cat certainly knew what Sakura was thinking and smiled faintly. Dishur Tian was a wisp of remnant soul. Only by reconstructing his corporeal body could he leave Nye Tian's origin embryo space. He wanted to restore his corporeal body even in his dreams. Thank you, Boss Chinchilla. Sakura nodded his head repeatedly and was very respectful. Nye Tian looked at the two of them speechlessly. With Dishur Tian's identity, it was indeed somewhat funny for him to bow and scrape to a Fat Cat. Fatty, what should we do with these scrolls? Nye Tian picked up the 3 forbidden skill scrolls, and his eyes flickered. He knew that the forbidden skill scrolls contained the power to give birth to the forbidden skill. It wouldn't be long before new forbidden skill runes would be produced in the forbidden skill scrolls. Destroy them. Fat Cat smiled mischievously. A divine light flashed in her eyes as she said faintly, destroy them. Nye Tian was stunned. He suspected that he had heard wrongly. These were the forbidden skill scrolls that had been passed down from ancient times. It would be a pity if they were destroyed. The ancestors of the Yun family only sealed the scrolls and didn't destroy them. They probably didn't have the heart to do so. The forbidden skill scrolls are indeed very powerful. However, they're also very dangerous at the same time. In order to obtain great power, I'm afraid that most people will take risks out of desperation. The forbidden skill scrolls will only bring harm to others. Fat Cat raised her eyebrows and said faintly. Nye Tian thought for a moment. Fat Cat's words did make some sense. However, he still couldn't bear to destroy the forbidden skill scrolls. Why don't we give them to Yin Tian? Nye Tian frowned and suddenly said, absolutely not. Fat Cat let out a strange cry and firmly objected. Giving the forbidden skill scrolls to a child in his teens is simply harming him. You should keep them for yourself. Nye Tian curled his lips and smiled. Giving the forbidden skill scrolls to Yin Tian was indeed not a wise move. Although Yin Tian had matured a lot, he was still too young. He definitely wouldn't be able to resist the temptation of a powerful forbidden skill. Just like Yin Qing in the past, it would only bring harm to him. Nye Tian carefully put away the scroll. His heart relaxed a lot. Fat, you said that we're going to next. Where is it? Nye Tian suddenly remembered what Fat Cat had said and couldn't help but ask. A very dangerous place. Fat Cat smiled strangely and immediately shouted, Brother Ming Hui, come in. Ming Hui, who was outside the door, heard the shout and immediately pushed the door open. When he saw Nye Tian, he couldn't help but be stunned and said, Nye Tian, you've changed? Nye Tian was also stunned. He immediately laughed and said, have I changed? Yes. Ming Hui nodded and said, you seem to be taller than before. Your appearance has also changed. Your facial features seem to be more handsome than before. Nye Tian, who had his martial body reconstructed, was a little more burly. His facial features had also changed slightly. The lines on his face were more obvious, and he looked much more handsome. However, his overall appearance was still the same. At least those who were familiar with him could recognize him at a glance. Maybe it's because of cultivation. Nye Tian laughed dryly and didn't explain anything. Brother Ming Hui, these are all small matters. Tell us about the Sunluo ghost realm. Fat Cat's figure also appeared. She chuckled and changed the topic at the right time. Sunluo ghost realm? When Nye Tian heard this name, he couldn't help but be stunned. It did sound like a dangerous place. Big Brother Chinchilla, are you really going to the Sunluo ghost realm? Ming Hui frowned. His expression was a little awkward and revealed a trace of worry. He said, this is a very dangerous place. It's a forbidden area of the God-shocking domain. It's really not a good place to go. It's precisely because it's dangerous that it's a good place. Fat Cat laughed strangely and said, and Nietian both like dangerous places. This, Ming Hui was speechless. He actually had no words to refute. Fat Cat smiled slightly and then became a little more serious. He said, there's something we want in the Sanluo ghost realm. We must go. Is it the seven-leaf dragon tongue orchid? Ming Hui was stunned and couldn't help but ask. Previously, Fat Cat asked him where to find the seven-leaf dragon tongue orchid. He said that someone had seen it in the Sanluo ghost realm. Fat Cat and Nietian wanted to go to the Sanluo ghost realm. It was obviously related to the seven-leaf dragon tongue orchid. Yes. Fat Cat smiled faintly and didn't deny it. He said, Nietian obtained the Terra vein source. However, if he wants to fuse with it, he needs some auxiliary things. The seven-leaf dragon tongue orchid is a good auxiliary thing. Fuse with the Terra vein source? Ming Hui was stunned and said, the Terra vein source is the power of the origin. With Nietian's current strength, can he fuse with it? He knew that Nietian had the devil aura and could fuse with the power of the origin. However, Nietian's strength was too weak. It was too dangerous for him to fuse with the Terra vein source now. Don't worry. As long as I have the seven-leaf dragon's mouth orchid, I'll be able to help Nietian fuse with the earth string source. Little Fat Cat chuckled, its eyes filled with confidence. At this time, Nietian also realized that they were going to the Sanluo ghost realm to help him fuse with the Terra vein source. Chapter 1629. Nietian didn't know what the seven-leaf dragon's tongue orchid was, but he felt that if it was enough to affect the fusion of demon essence and earth vein source, then the power of this herb was too great. Although he had his doubts, he didn't say it out loud. He trusted Fat Cat. Brother Ming Hui, tell me about the ghost Sanluo region. Fat Cat chuckled, seeming very interested. All right. Ming Hui knew that he couldn't stop Nietian and Fat Cat, so he could only sigh and say, the ghost Sanluo region is a forbidden area of the shocking god realm verse. Legend has it that the ghost Sanluo region is the ancestral land of the ancient Sanluo demon clan. There are many secrets hidden there. The most frightening thing is that there is only night and no day. It is called the Sun-Fallen Land. The Sun-Fallen Land. Fat Cat laughed and said playfully, continue. Ming Hui nodded slightly and continued. Although the ghost Sanluo region is in the shocking god realm verse, it is not under the jurisdiction of the 12 shrines. Moreover, the space-time there is very chaotic and often intersects with the subordinate worlds of the shocking god realm verse. Hearing this, Nietian couldn't help but frown. The ghost Sanluo region was indeed a bit strange. If space-time was so chaotic and intersected with many planes, then wouldn't there be many space-time vortexes? Space-time vortexes contain powerful space-time storms. Even over-god-level warriors might not be able to withstand them. Elder Ming, if the ghost Sanluo region is not under the jurisdiction of the 12 shrines, then what force is in control? Nietian didn't dwell on the matter of the space-time vortexes and asked, there are two great dark forces in the ghost Sanluo region. One is the Sanluo Hall, the other is the Ghost King Palace. Rumor has it that the Sanluo Hall Master and the Ghost King Palace Master are even stronger than the Palace Masters of the 12 Shrines. It is very likely that these two are already overgods. Ming Hui said solemnly, his eyes flashing. Elder Ming, are you all right? Nietian was sharp and sensed that Ming Hui's expression was strange, so he couldn't help but ask. Ming Hui was startled and seemed to hesitate, but he still sighed and said, more than 200,000 years ago, I went to the ghost Sanluo region and met someone. Ming Hui couldn't help but hesitate again. Who is it? Nietian and Little Fat Cat asked in unison when they saw Ming Hui's expression. It was obvious that the person Ming Hui knew was not an ordinary person, or he wouldn't be so hesitant. That person is called Limitless Seven Nights. Ming Hui's eyes trembled slightly as he said, at that time, he and I hit it off very well, and we became sworn brothers. Ming Hui took out a black token and said, this token was given to me. Sanluo 7 gave. He said, Sanluo Knight. He said, Ming Hui and I got. Minghui eyes. Having said that, Minghui took out a black token and said, "This token was given to me by Sunluo 7 Nights. He told me that if I needed any help in the future, I could take the Sunluo token to him." Nietian took the token and saw that there was nothing on it. It was like a piece of iron in his hand. "Nietian, take this Sunluo token when you go to the Ghost Sunluo region. It may be useful." Minghui nodded and said sincerely, "Thank you, Elder Ming." Nietian didn't stand on ceremony and put away the Sunluo token. Since Sunluo 7 Nights was the son of the Temple Lord, his status must be very high. Maybe the previous Temple Lord was dead, and Sunluo 7 Nights was now the Temple Lord. If that was the case, then Nietian's trip to the Ghost Sunluo region will be much easier. Wait. At this time, Fat Cat seemed to notice something and exclaimed, "You just said that you met Sunluo 7 Nights more than 200,000 years ago. Did you see this 7-leaf dragon tongue orchid more than 200,000 years ago?" "Yes." Minghui nodded with a bitter smile and said, "Although it's been a long time, I'm sure that there must be a 7-leaf dragon tongue orchid in the Ghost Sunluo region." Fat Cat was speechless. More than 200,000 years? That was a long time. It was a very long time. Nietian couldn't help but be stunned. It was indeed a long time. However, since the 7-leaf dragon tongue orchid had appeared in the Ghost Sunluo region, it at least meant that this place had this kind of medicinal herb. "Nietian, your martial body has just been reconstructed. Rest for a few days. When your body recovers, we'll set off immediately." Fat Cat thought for a moment and said to Nietian. Then she went out with Minghui. In the room, only Nietian was left. His martial body had just been reconstructed, so he really needed a few days to adapt. In the next few days, Nietian worked hard to adapt to his new body. After 3 days, he felt that he had more or less adapted and was ready to leave with Fat Cat. In the valley at the entrance of Stone Village, Nietian and Fat Cat prepared to leave. In these few days, Fat Cat explained some of the details of the Great Nine Dragons formation to Minghui. With the latter's formation attainments, it wouldn't be a problem to build the Great Nine Dragons formation. Nietian specially reminded Yao Chun that when the Great Nine Dragons formation opened, he was to find Zhao Zi of the Crimson Moon Divine Palace and ask the latter to enter the formation to cultivate. Zhao Zi had once asked Nietian to use the Mother Earth Primordial Stone to help him raise his strength. Nietian never had the chance to do so, so he could only use the Great Nine Dragons formation to fulfill his promise. Anyway, it didn't matter if there was one more person in the Great Nine Dragons formation. This time, Nietian and Fat Cat entered the Ghost Sunluo region alone. Nietxiu, Ed, and the rest stayed by Ming Hui's side. Chun Wuqing also stayed, waiting for the Great Nine Dragons formation to open. Sunluo Ghost Sunluo region was an extremely dangerous place, and Nietian did not want others to take the risk with him. "Nietxiu, you have the purple demon eyes and silver wolf hand, trained properly in the Great Nine Dragons formation. When I return, I look forward to a huge breakthrough in your strength." Nietian could see that Nietxiu was unwilling to leave, so he took a step forward and said indifferently, "Nietxiu will definitely not disappoint, mister." Nietxiu nodded his head. He had followed by Nietian's side for a long time, and had watched Nietian fight his way from the 3,000 small worlds to where he was today. And he himself, from a demon lord, was influenced by Nietian and became the current Nietxiu. To be able to follow Nietian, Nietxiu did not regret it at all, even though the former made him a spirit-devouring rat for a long time. If not for Nietian, Nietxiu would definitely not be able to step into the 9 domains, and would not have the strength he had today. Nietian took a glance at Chun Wuqing and smiled faintly. "Farewell, Chun Wuqing. Goodbye." Chun Wuqing nodded his head, his eyes extremely resolute. In this trip underground, he had truly realized the difference between him and Nietian, and he had to quickly raise his strength so that when they meet again, his strength would not be too far away from Nietian. Nietian nodded his head, and after bidding farewell to everyone, he did not stay any longer and turned to leave. Everyone watched as the silver-haired figure walked further and further away, their expressions becoming serious. Teacher, is the place that Big Brother Nyetian is going to be very dangerous? Idi suddenly looked at Ming Hui and asked. Ming Hui laughed and said, to Nyetian, that place should not be considered dangerous. Ming Hui looked at the resolute back view, as though he saw himself in the past. For the sake of his heart, he would disregard everything. Chapter 16:30. 5 days later, high up in the sky was clear and cloudless. Boom! At this time, a loud roar came from the sky. A huge divine boat broke through the strong astral winds and flew in the void. This divine boat was 10,000 meters long. From afar, it looked like a huge fish swimming in the sky. At this moment, in a corner of the divine boat, a silver-haired figure was sitting cross-legged. His breathing was even, and he seemed to be resting with his eyes closed. This figure was none other than Nyetian. At this moment, he was cultivating. Even if the surroundings were noisy, Nyetian would not give up on cultivating for even a minute. Since he boarded the divine boat, he had been sitting in a remote corner and had not moved for 3 days. Nyetian used 2 days to rush from the cloud-splitting mountain to Jiufeng City and took the divine boat to the Sunluo Ghost region. The Sunluo Ghost region was at the edge of the shocking God territory. It was very far away. Even with the speed of the divine boat, it would take a few days to reach. He originally thought that not many people would go to a place like the Sunluo Ghost region. He did not expect that there were more than 10,000 people on the divine boat. Cultivating in such an environment was indeed a test of a martial artist's patience. Sister, is this Big Brother dead? He hasn't moved for a long time. At this time, a girl in pink finally could not stand it anymore. She walked slowly in front of Nyetian and said in a childish voice. The girl was about 5 or 6 years old. She was slightly plump, had a pair of big eyes, and a snow-white face. She looked like a porcelain doll. Beside the girl stood a 15 or 16-year-old girl in purple. Her eyes were shining with a strange light. She carried a long sword on her back and had a delicate and determined face. She did not have the naivety of a young girl. Instead, she gave off a heroic vibe. The girl in purple had also observed Nyetian for a long time. She found that Nyetian was very strange. His aura was restrained, and she could not feel any aura at all. He looked a little like he was dead. Sister, he is not moving at all. I'm afraid he is really dead. The girl in pink walked to Nyetian's side and suddenly stretched out her hand, wanting to see if Nyetian was really dead. Shaner, don't touch her. Seeing this, the purple-clothed girl's expression changed, and she couldn't help but scream. Yeah, at this moment, a strange cry suddenly came from Nyetian's body. Immediately, a small beast flickering with golden radiance leaped out of nowhere and jumped onto Nyetian's shoulder. Nyetian's eyes also opened at this moment. He stretched out his palm, and the little beast on his shoulder leaped onto his palm. That furry little beast was about the size of an adult kitten. Its whole body was covered in flickering golden fur. At first glance, it looked like a golden fireball. This little beast was Little Gold Ho. In just a few days, Little Gold Lion's body had grown a lot. Originally, it was only the size of a baby's fist, but now it was as big as Fat Cat. Nyetian had specially bought a large spirit pet ring for Little Gold Ho to stay inside. Moreover, it could come and go as it pleased. Nyetian rose to his feet, looked at the 2 girls in front of him, and said with a faint smile, "Girls, what can I do for you? My apologies, my sister is naughty and disturbed you." The purple-clothed girl smiled awkwardly and quickly apologized. "It's fine." Nyetian smiled and said, "My name is Nyetian. What's your name?" The purple-clothed girl was stunned for a moment. She didn't expect Nyetian to be so direct. She immediately said, "My name is Mo Ihan. This is my sister, Mo Lingshan." Wow! At this time, Mo Lingshan suddenly shouted in excitement and happily shouted, "What a cute kitten! Can I hug it?" Of course. Nyetian was stunned for a moment. Then, he immediately smiled and handed Little Gold Ho to Mo Lingshan. The Mo sisters were very innocent. They didn't know what the little thing in Nyetian's hand was. Mo Lingshan even thought that Little Gold Ho was a kitten. Nietion signaled Little Gold Ho not to move around and release its golden flame power at will. It would be bad if it hurt Mo Lingshan. Mo Lingshan happily walked away with Little Gold Ho in her arms and ran to the side to play. Miss Mo, are you also going to the Sunluo Ghost Realm? Nietion hesitated for a moment before asking. He was very curious. The Mo sisters were so young and their strength wasn't strong. Why did they want to go to the Sunluo Ghost Realm? Yes. Mo Ihan didn't pretend at all. She nodded with a smile and said, I'm taking Shan to the Sunluo Ghost Realm. Nietion frowned. He swept his divine sense over Mo Ihan and found that her strength was at the peak of the lower god realm. Moreover, her sword principle had reached the swordbone realm. Nietion's eyes couldn't help but tremble when he noticed this. Although this kind of strength wasn't strong, it was ridiculously strong for a 15 or 16-year-old girl to possess it. Could she be a cultivator with innate godhead like Chen Wuqing? Nietion was stunned for a moment. He was even more baffled because Mo Ihan's sword principle realm was also extremely shocking. She was actually at the swordbone realm. It should be noted that even Nietion was only at the sword vein stage. Mo Ihan was much younger than Nietion, but her sword principle realm was actually higher than Nietion's. It was truly frightening. Among all the people Nietion had met, only Cher's sword principle talent could compare to Mo Ihan's. But Cher could integrate the sword intent inheritances of more than 10,000 swordsmen from the ancient era. She was a swordsman with Wan Jin's bloodline. How could Mo Ihan possess such formidable sword principle strength? Just you and Shan or? Nietion suppressed the shock in his heart and asked. Mo Ihan's strength had indeed exceeded his expectations, but if she dared to bring her sister into the Ghost Sunluo domain, it would be too dangerous. Not everyone dared to enter the Ghost Sunluo domain. There's only me and my sister now, but my second uncle is already waiting for us there. Mo Ihan answered without any suspicion. That's good. Nietion smiled faintly, then asked, Is Miss Mo going to the Ghost Sunluo domain for something? The Ghost King's wedding. Mo Ihan laughed, then noticed the stunned expression on Nietion's face. You don't know about the Ghost King's wedding? The Ghost King's wedding? Nietion was dumbfounded for a second, then smiled awkwardly, shaking his head. What is this? I really don't know. The Ghost King Palace Lord is going to marry the 72nd wife. At that time, the Ghost King Palace will set up a Ghost King arena, and anyone who can win against the Ghost King Palace's cultivators can make a request to the Ghost King Palace Lord. Mo Ihan laughed, seemingly a little excited, saying, The Ghost King Celestial Palace Lord is very powerful. Many people are aiming for the Ghost King Celestial Palace's marriage, hoping to win against the Ghost King Celestial Palace's cultivators on the Ghost King battle stage, and make a request to the Ghost King Celestial Palace. So that's how it is. Nietion nodded slightly. No wonder so many people went to the Ghost Sunluo domain, so there was such a thing. He then smiled and said, This Ghost King Palace Lord is really powerful. He has already married the 72nd wife. Mo Ihan nodded and said, I heard that the Ghost King Palace Lord's 72nd wife is very powerful, a person who has the legendary 10 great innate other pupils. It seems that the 7th other pupil is the 9-color pupil. 9-color pupil. Hearing these 3 words, Nietion's pupils suddenly shrank, and he actually cried out in surprise. The 7th other pupil is the 9-color pupil. Not many people have this other pupil. Nietion only knew one person, and that was Rui Qianyu. His first reaction was that the Ghost King Palace Lord's 72nd wife was Rui Qianyu. Chapter 1631. Hearing Mo Ihan mention that the Ghost King Palace Master's 72nd wife was a martial artist with 9-colored pupils, Nietion's face darkened, because he only knew one martial artist with 9-colored pupils, and that was Rui Qianyu. Big brother Nietion, are you all right? Mo Ihan saw Nietion's strange expression and thought she had said something wrong. Her small face couldn't help feeling nervous. I'm fine. Nietion calmed down, and his expression softened a lot, asking, Miss Mo, what else do you know about the Ghost King's marriage? Can you tell me? Of course. Mo Ihan smiled faintly and immediately told Nyetian about the Ghost King's marriage. The Ghost King's marriage was a major event in the Sunluo ghost domain, and every time it happened, it would alarm many cultivators in the god domain. The Ghost King Palace Master was a mysterious character. He had married 71 wives before, but each wife died mysteriously in less than a year with the Ghost King. After that, the Ghost King began to search for his next wife. Most importantly, when the Ghost King married, he would set up a Ghost King arena, which was a good opportunity for cultivators in the god domain. As long as one entered the Ghost King arena and defeated a cultivator from the Ghost King Celestial Palace, they could propose a condition to the Ghost King Palace Master. In principle, any condition was fine, but no one would be stupid enough to propose a particularly outrageous condition, which was likely to anger the Ghost King. After listening to Mo Ihan, Nyetian couldn't help but frown and ask in a low voice, "Every single wife of the Ghost King died mysteriously. Has no one ever suspected anything? He had married 71 wives, and every wife died mysteriously. There must be something fishy. Who would dare to suspect?" Mo Ihan was stunned for a moment, then asked in return. Nyetian's eyes darkened, and then he fell silent. The Ghost King Palace Master's position in the Sunluo ghost domain was absolutely the highest existence. Not to mention that his wife died mysteriously. Even if he killed her, who would dare to say anything? This was the cruel world of martial arts, where strength determined everything. I think those women chosen by the Ghost King to be his wives all had no choice. Mo Ihan sighed softly, her eyes trembling. Knowing that there was something strange about the Ghost King's marriage, she was still forced to be his wife. How could this helplessness be explained by having no choice? "Miss Mo, what is your purpose in going to Sunluo ghost domain this time?" Nyetian asked Mo Ihan after calming down. For Mo Ihan to bring a 5- or 6-year-old girl to Shinra ghost domain, it was obvious that he was not there to watch the fun. There must be something important. "It's not convenient for me to talk about it," Mo Ihan said bluntly with a faint smile. Nyetian smiled and nodded. Since the other party didn't want to tell him, he wouldn't force him. Huang Xiaolong guessed that Mo Ihan must have run into some difficulties and wanted to defeat the Ghost King Celestial Palace's cultivators through the Ghost King Battle Arena, thus requesting the Ghost King Palace Master's help. "Little girl, where are you running to?" Just at this moment, a roar came from not far away, sounding very angry. "Elder sister, a bad person is hitting me." Immediately after, a very familiar child's voice rang out. It was Mo Lingshan's voice. "Shana." When Mo Ihan heard her sister's voice, she frowned. Then, her figure flashed, turning into a sword image as she flew over. Nyetian Mo's face sank, and he followed. Among the crowd, several cultivators in black approached Mo Lingshan step by step with ferocious gazes. After all, Mo Lingshan was still young. Tears welled up in her big eyes, flowing down her face. However, she said proudly, "If you dare to hit me, my elder sister will not let you off." "Your elder sister?" One of the cultivators in black laughed coldly. "Your elder sister better not appear. Otherwise, we will kill her as well." "Is that so?" Before the cultivator in black finished speaking, a cold voice rang out. Then, a valiant figure appeared, blocking Mo Lingshan. It was Mo Ihan. "Elder sister," Mo Lingshan cried when she saw Mo Ihan. "Shan, don't be afraid, elder sister is here." Mo Ihan shielded her sister behind her. Cold eyes stared at the cultivators in black and said, "You are so shameless. So many men bullying a little girl." These cultivators in black were not weak. The strongest was a mid-stage high god, while the rest were early-stage high gods. So many people bullying a little girl of 5 or 6 years of age. It was indeed shameless. Shameless? The leader of the group laughed mischievously. His eyes moved greedily on Mo Ihan's body. His eyes shone with a lustful light, and his saliva was about to drip down. He said, "Little beauty, you will soon see what true shamelessness is." Courting death. Mo Ihan knew that the other party had evil thoughts. She couldn't help but roar. She unsheathed the sword on her back. A sharp sword image whizzed out and attacked the person in front of her. That person reacted very quickly. He struck out with his palm and shattered the sword image. At the same time, an enormous wave of energy rolled towards Mo Ihan. Although Mo Ihan's realm of the sword was very high, her actual strength was too weak. She was only a peak low god while her opponent was a mid-stage high god. The gap between their realms was nearly 2 whole realms. Her realm of the sword couldn't make up for it. Mo Ihan felt an enormous force coming at her. She was sent flying. She was still in the air when she suddenly felt a soft force appear, supporting her and steadily landing on the ground. "Miss Mo, are you all right?" Nietian appeared behind Mo Ihan and asked with a faint smile. "I'm fine. Thank you, Brother Nietian," Mo Ihan said softly. Nietian nodded. He took a step forward and a sword aura soared into the sky. His entire body was like an enormous sword. He stood there like a mountain. "Brat, don't meddle in other people's business." The leading expert in black sneered when he saw Nietian's ferocious and strange aura. He said, "You have to pay the price if you want to be a hero and save the damsel in distress." "Shaner, what happened?" Nietian didn't even spare the black-robed cultivator glance. Instead, he looked at Mo Lingshan and asked indifferently. Mo Lingshan looked very wronged. She hugged Jean too and said, "They want to rob me of my kitten." Nietian's eyes narrowed. It turned out that these people had their eyes on Jean too and wanted to rob her. A group of high god experts wanted to rob a little girl in front of so many people. It was really shameless. Nietian looked at the people around him. They all wore cold faces. No one was willing to help. "Brat, I'm from the Divine Glacial Palace. If you know what's good for you, get lost. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite." The leader smiled coldly. His eyes were filled with terrifying killing intent. "People from the Divine Glacial Palace." Nie Tianling laughed. He didn't hide his disdain. He said coldly, "I'm going to interfere in this matter." The Divine Glacial Palace was one of the 4 most powerful palaces among the 12. It was a peak force in the entire God-shaking realmverse. It was no wonder that no one dared to interfere. Chapter 1632. Nie Tian's ice-cold voice reverberated in the air and fell into the ears of the crowd. It was like a thunderclap from the highest heavens. In the crowd's opinion, Nie Tian was definitely out of his mind by intervening despite knowing that the other party was from the Divine Arctic Palace. The surrounding crowd couldn't help but look at Nie Tian in a different light. They suspected that this kid was courting death. Seeing a little girl being bullied, you chose to stand by and watch. In my opinion, the ones who are out of their minds are you. Nie Tian, of course, knew what the crowd was thinking. He didn't try to hide anything and roared. Everyone was taken aback, and the way they looked at Nie Tian became not only strange, but also vicious. "Brat, with your strength, you want to meddle in other people's business? You're courting death." The leader of the black-robed men roared in a low voice. After that, he laughed coldly and took a step forwards. A terrifying cold energy gushed forth from him. The surrounding space seemed to be frozen. The coldness was extremely intense. "Is that so?" Nie Tian also let out a cold laugh. With a shake of his body, a sword aura shot out like a dragon soaring through the clouds. Kaboom! A loud explosion sounded in the air. The moment the 2 forces collided, the cold energy was shattered. The black-robed warrior was forced to retreat by the sword momentum. He almost couldn't stand. The crowd couldn't help but gasp when they saw this scene. Their eyes trembled. They couldn't believe their eyes. For a late-stage mid-god to be able to force back a mid-stage high god by relying on the momentum of his sword was just too bizarre. Mo Ihan, who was behind Nie Tian, was also stunned. Her beautiful eyes were dull, and her whole body was stiff. She originally thought that Nie Tian's battle strength was about the same as hers, or even weaker than hers. Although Nie Tian's strength was stronger than hers, his realm of swordsmanship was weaker than hers. Therefore, his battle strength might not necessarily be stronger than hers. But now, it seemed that Nie Tian's battle strength was too terrifying. He actually had the upper hand in a head-on clash with a high god expert. "Brat, Why is your strength so strange? The black-clothed martial artist stabilized his body and took a deep breath. His eyes could not help but tremble as he cried out in a trembling voice. Scram before I get really angry. Nia Tianling looked coldly at the black-clothed cultivator and growled deeply. The wild sound waves were like raging waves, resounding in the air, abnormally overbearing. Nia Tian didn't want to kill anyone. With his strength, that exchange just now was enough to kill the black-clothed martial artist. However, he didn't do so because he didn't want to attract the attention of others. Brat, you're too arrogant. The black-clothed cultivator's eyes flashed fiercely as he roared. I didn't want to kill you, but you asked for it. Right after the berserk voice sounded out, the black-clad cultivator's aura soared wildly. A cold energy surged out, and space seemed like it would freeze. Big Brother Nietian, watch out. Mo Yihan's little face couldn't help but tremble as she felt the chill in the air. She didn't understand Nietian's strength and was very worried about his safety. Little did she know that when Nietian's strength was far weaker than it was now, he had once killed a high god at the pinnacle. Now that Nietian's strength had risen to the late stage of mid-god, coupled with the improvement of his martial body brought about by the three great forbidden skills, a casual attack from him could instantly kill an ordinary high god. You reckless dog, go to hell. The black-clothed martial artist roared and struck out with his palm. A giant ice palm came crashing down like an iceberg, fiercely pressing down on Nietian. Nietian stood where he was, unmoving like a mountain. There was not the slightest fluctuation in his eyes. Only killing intent was slowly brewing. You're courting death. Just as the giant ice palm was about to press down, the corners of Nietian's mouth twitched. Immediately after, he struck out with his sword. The sword's shadow was as swift and fierce as lightning, blazing like fire. It suddenly whizzed out and directly bombarded the giant ice palm into pieces. Then, it attacked the black-clothed martial artist. Boom! In just an instant, the sword's shadow flew past. The black-clothed martial artist didn't even have time to scream before he died on the spot. Not even his bones were left. Only a godhead was left floating in the air. A ghastly scene occurred. Everyone's eyes widened and they held their breath. The scene fell into a deathly silence. No one had expected that the winner of this duel would be Nietian. A medial deity martial artist had killed a superior deity martial artist. Moreover, he had done it so effortlessly. This was simply too terrifying. Everyone could see that Nietian hadn't displayed his strength at all. That sword strike just now was just a casual strike. Nietian's true strength was unimaginable. Does anyone else want to try? Nietian took a step forward. His eyes were cold as he stared at the other martial artists. Those martial artists felt like sheep being stared at by a ferocious wolf. Their bodies were drenched in cold sweat, and they couldn't help but retreat. Scram! Nietian roared in a low voice, extremely domineering. The martial artists from the Cold Palace didn't dare to stay any longer and left in embarrassment. Nietian didn't care about them. He retracted his sword aura and slowly turned around. He looked at the Mo sisters and smiled. Miss Mo, are you two all right? Mo Ihan finally reacted. Her stiff face softened a little as she said, We're fine. Many thanks to Big Brother Nietian. It's nothing, Nietian said with a faint smile, his expression calm. Mo Ihan's beautiful eyes flickered. What happened just now might have been nothing to Nietian, but it was a great favor to the sisters. If it wasn't for Nietian, their lives might have been in danger. Mo Ihan would remember this kindness in her heart. Nietian being able to help was out of Mo Ihan's expectation. Although Nietian was very strong, his opponent was still a member of the Arctic Divine Palace. Nietian killing a cultivator from the Arctic Divine Palace had undoubtedly offended the Arctic Divine Palace. However, Nietian didn't seem to care at all. It was as if he didn't care about the Cold Palace at all. Shan, return little gold lion to Big Brother Nietian, Mo Ihan said to her sister. Of course, she knew that it was Gold Lion, not a kitten. The kitten is so cute. Although Mo Lingshan was a little reluctant, she still returned Gold Lion to Nyetian. Nyetian smiled faintly and let little Gold Lion return to the spiritual pet ring. If this was an ordinary Gold Lion, Nyetian could have given it to Mo Lingshan. However, his Gold Lion had swallowed the Golden Blaze Flint. In a few months, it would grow into a real savage beast. Big Brother Nyetian, your little Gold Lion seems to be different from an ordinary Gold Lion. Did it eat something special? Mo Ihan hesitated for a moment and finally asked. She could feel that there was a very terrifying power in little Gold Lion's body. It was slowly awakening, and it was extremely terrifying. It ate something. Nyetian smiled faintly and didn't explain too much. At the same time, he said in his heart, in the future, I better not let little Gold Lion out so casually, in case someone sees through it and causes trouble. Mo Ihan could see that Nyetian didn't want to say more. She smiled faintly and didn't ask anymore. After a few hours, the moving divine boat slowly stopped and floated in the sky. Big Brother Nyetian, we have arrived at the Sunluo Ghost region. Mo Ihan was a little excited as she pointed below. Nyetian looked down. In front of him was a gloomy forest. It was extremely vast and had a radius of about a few thousand miles. Chapter 1633. After 5 days, Nyetian finally arrived at the legendary Sunluo Ghost region. He couldn't help but feel a little excited. We have arrived at the Sunluo Ghost region. At this time, a powerful voice sounded on the divine boat. Then, the door at the edge of the divine boat opened, and everyone began to leave the divine boat. Nyetian and Mo Ihan were not in a hurry. They waited until almost everyone left before preparing to leave. Stepping out of the divine boat, Nyetian's figure froze in midair. He looked at the Sunluo Ghost region below, activated the holographic divine pattern, and sensed the aura in the surrounding space. He couldn't help but frown. The Sunluo Ghost region was indeed, as Minghui said. It was dark, and there was no sunlight. It seemed that this was a space that sunlight couldn't reach. It was very strange. Nyetian sensed the aura in the space. There seemed to be a strange restriction in the space. It was vast and boundless, covering the entire Sunluo Ghost region. Brother Nyetian, let's enter the Sunluo Ghost region now. Mo Ihan saw others entering the Ghost region one after another and couldn't help but say, this was the first time she came to the Sunluo Ghost region. It was inevitable that she was a little excited. Nyetian nodded slightly. His figure moved and came to the ground in the blink of an eye. The Sunluo Ghost region was different from other cities. There were no city gates, and anyone could enter at will. However, this place was notorious. Obviously, not many people were willing to enter. If it wasn't for the Ghost King's wedding, there probably wouldn't be so many people coming to the Sunluo Ghost region. Nyetian and Mo Ihan came to a dense forest at the edge. As they continued to walk forward, they could see sparse, dilapidated buildings. Brother Nyetian, wait a moment. At this time, Mo Ihan suddenly spoke. Then, she unsheathed the long sword on her back. A sword aura rushed into the sky, turned into a dazzling sword shadow, and disappeared in the sky. Nyetian smiled faintly and said, this is the way you communicate with each other, right? Mo Ihan smiled slightly and said, second uncle saw my signal and will come soon. Nyetian nodded and smiled. He didn't speak anymore and waited attentively. When Mo Ihan's second uncle appeared, he would separate from the two sisters. He wasn't used to traveling with others. Nyetian and the others waited for a long time, but no one came. Strange, did second uncle not see my signal? A puzzled look appeared on Mo Ihan's pretty face. She raised the sword in her hand again, wanting to release another signal. Wait! Right at this time, Nyetian suddenly waved his hand and stopped Mo Ihan. What's wrong? Mo Ihan was startled. She looked around, but did not find anything strange. Someone's coming. Nyetian frowned and said in a deep voice. Mo Ihan frowned slightly and looked around again. Still, she did not see anyone. Nyetian spread out his divine sense and sensed several figures approaching them at an extremely fast speed. His expression couldn't help but darken as he asked, Miss Mo, how many people are with your second uncle? Mo Ihan frowned. She didn't know what Nyetian had discovered, so she said in confusion, Second uncle is alone. There is no one else with him. Nyetian could not help but frown, and his face immediately became gloomy. At this moment, he sensed at least 7 or 8 figures madly rushing towards them. Moreover, they were all carrying a very terrifying killing intent. Killing intent. Mo Ihan was a sword-bone swordsman, so her perception was not bad. She immediately felt that something was wrong and could not help but exclaim, Leave this place. Nyetian roared. Astral soul wings appeared on his back as he prepared to leave immediately. Mo Ihan nodded in response and immediately rushed forward with Mo Lingshan in tow. Bang! However, just as the 3 of them ran for about 1,000 meters, the ground in front of them suddenly exploded. A figure actually drilled out from the ground. People from the Mo clan, since you have come to the Sanluo Ghost region, do you still want to run? The figure that drilled out from the ground was a short and skinny cultivator. He was only the size of a 7 or 8-year-old child, but his entire body's aura was very strong, and his killing intent was heavy. Nyetian's eyes narrowed slightly. From the other party's tone, it seemed that he was an enemy of the Mo clan. Who are you? I don't even know you. Mo Ihan's beautiful eyes flickered, and there was a trace of panic in her voice. It doesn't matter if you don't know me, as long as your surname is Mo, the short and skinny cultivator said coldly. Then his figure moved. His footwork was very strange, as though he was flying close to the ground. He directly dashed towards Mo Ihan. Be careful, Nyetian roared. This short and skinny cultivator had the strength of a mid-stage high god. He was not someone that Mo Ihan could handle. Boom! Without hesitation, Nyetian struck out with his sword. The vast and mighty sword shadow landed on the ground, directly shattering the ground. Endless amounts of sand and stones were sent flying. The short and skinny cultivator was caught off guard. His body trembled, and he was actually sent flying by the sword chi. However, his figure was very agile. He was actually like a monkey climbing on a giant tree. Brat, you're not a member of the Mo clan. Don't meddle in other people's business. The short and skinny cultivator sized up Nyetian with his sharp eyes. His expression sank slightly. Clearly, he did not expect Nyetian's strength to be so valiant. His sword strike actually contained such power. I don't care what grudges you have with the Mo clan. These 2 ladies are my friends. I can't just ignore them, Nyetian replied coldly. He sensed that the person behind him was getting closer and closer. It seems that you're hell-bent on courting death. The short cultivator sneered. Then his figure moved. His entire body turned into a disc that spun rapidly in the air. Immediately, countless sharp blades flew in the air, blotting out the sky as they bombarded towards Nyetian. Nyetian's eyes couldn't help but narrow. He had never seen anyone use such a strange martial technique. He could feel that the sharp blades in the air were very sharp and had great destructive power. They should not be underestimated. Nyetian did not dare to be careless. He activated the Astral Soul Shield, protecting the Mo sisters first. Then his figure moved. Sword intent surged out of his body. He slashed down with his sword, and a vast sword shadow whistled out, bombarding towards the short cultivator. With one sword strike, countless sharp blades were destroyed. The violent sword intent turned into surging waves of chi, pressing towards the short cultivator. The short cultivator was surprised. Then his eyes trembled. Only now did he know how terrifying Nyetian was. He hurriedly dodged, but he was still a step too late. His body was swept by the sword shadow, and he was directly sent flying. He smashed into a giant tree, and the several meters thick trunk was pierced through. Brat, your strength is very strange. The short cultivator steadied himself and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. He looked at Nyetian with a deep fear in his eyes. The 2 sword strikes just now were warnings. If you don't scram, the next sword strike will take your life. Nyetian replied coldly. His eyes were filled with a strong, killing intent. His entire person seemed gloomy and cold. What a terrifying, killing intent. The short cultivator's heart trembled. He couldn't help but exclaim in shock, after which his silhouette flickered, and he directly left, leaving behind a voice in the air. Take good care of the people behind you. Nyetian stared at the silhouette of the short cultivator and couldn't help but feel a little strange. This person's martial technique was indeed somewhat strange. And at this moment, the people behind him also arrived. Numerous silhouettes descended from the sky, directly surrounding Nyetian and his two companions. The surging killing intent permeated the air, as though it was real, causing people to feel suffocated. Nyetian's expression sank. He glanced at the surrounding cultivators, and his gaze locked onto a certain silhouette. Cold, he said, Dugu and I, it's you. Chapter 1634. Dugu and I. When Nyetian saw that Dugu and I was among the cultivators surrounding him, he could not help but frown and exclaim in surprise. He didn't expect to meet Dugu and I here. Nyetian. Dugu and I was even more surprised when he saw Nyetian. Nyetian's appearance seemed to have changed a little. His whole person seemed to be sharper than before. When he sensed Nyetian's strength, the surprise in his eyes became even more intense. However, Dugani's self-control was very strong. He suppressed the shock in his heart and said in a deep voice, Nyetian, I didn't expect your strength to improve so fast. I'm amazed. Dugu and I, your strength also improved quickly. It seems that you have perfectly integrated with Shui Wushuang's sage arm. Nyetian calmed down at this moment. He fixed his eyes on Dugani's arm and said in a cold voice. Dugani's strength had reached the late stage of mid-god, the same as Nyetian. Dugani's strength improved at a speed beyond Nyetian's expectation. It was indeed very terrifying. Nyetian had a powerful trump card, and so did Dugu and I. He had the 100 virtual body and the 8th other pupil, the Eye of Devil's Night. Now that he had integrated with Shui Wushuang's sage arm, his strength was probably even stronger. Big brother Nyetian, do you know this person? When Mo Han saw that Nyetian and Dugu and I actually knew each other, she couldn't help but look cold. There was a trace of hesitation in her expression. Obviously, she was suspicious of Nyetian. An old rival. Nyetian answered indifferently, his face expressionless. Nyetian, I really admire you. You are always surrounded by beautiful women. Dugu and I smiled coldly and fixed his cold eyes on Mo Han. He said in a deep voice, but you can't protect this girl. Let me give you a free piece of advice. If you don't want to get into trouble, leave quickly. Nyetian's eyes slightly narrowed. He said in a deep voice, you want me to leave? Do you think it's possible? Humph. Dugu and I smiled sinisterly and said in a cold voice, Nyetian, since you don't want to leave, then don't blame me. Attack. All of a sudden, the 8 black-robed men unleashed their killing intent, condensed it into a formidable aura, and charged towards Nyetian. You think you can kill me? You're not qualified. Nyetian let out a low roar and released all of his sword momentum. Like a sharp sword, he soared into the sky. The surging momentum was extremely frightening, and he forcibly broke through the oncoming momentum. At the same time, he moved and stabbed his sword. The sharp and cold sword went straight for one of the black-clothed martial artists. Danger! All the men in black were stunned. They immediately felt the danger and screamed. They obviously didn't expect Nyetian to be so strong. Even under the joint attack of 7 or 8 superior gods, he could still forcefully break through and even counterattack. Boom! The frightening sword shot out. The martial artist in black didn't have time to react. His flesh and blood splattered everywhere. He died on the spot. The sudden turn of events caused the black-robed man to go blank. Unconcealable fear appeared in his eyes as he looked at Nyetian. Is this all you've got? What a mess. Nyetian took a step forward. He was extremely powerful. The sword momentum around him spread out for thousands of meters, forcing the men in black to retreat. After killing one of the men in black with one sword, the others became obviously frightened. They hesitated and didn't dare to move forward. Nyetian, do you really want to protect these two girls? Seeing this, Dugu and I couldn't help but frown and ask coldly. Of course, Nye Tianling replied indifferently. He said in a deep voice, with me here, don't even think about hurting a hair on these two girls. Nye Tian, you're still the same as when you were in the heaven realm. You still like to show off. Do you think you can protect them with your strength? Dugani's eyes were extremely gloomy. He seemed to be thinking about something. He said, you don't even know who wants to kill them. Do I need to know? Nye Tianling replied coldly. His eyes were domineering and fierce. He didn't care who Duga and I worked for. He would protect the Mo sisters. Arrogant, Duga and I roared. His eyes were full of killing intent. He didn't hesitate anymore. His whole body released the billowing 100 void chi. The 100 void boundary was instantly opened. At the same time, he roared, Nye Tian, you and I didn't have the chance to fight in the competition of the 12 shrines. Today, let's fight to the death. As Dugu Ni's strength increased, the suppression of the 100 void boundary became even more terrifying. He was confident that within the 100 void boundary, Nye Tian was absolutely no match for him. Nye Tian, today I'll let you see how powerful the sage's arm is in my hands. Duga and I seemed to have gone crazy. He stretched out his arm and a golden light shone. At the same time, he fused the 100 void chi with a punch. Suddenly, a golden fish shadow surged with black chi and crazily pressed down on Yeton. The golden fish shadow was extremely powerful. Everywhere it passed, the ground was torn apart. The wind and clouds roared and the sky changed color. Nyetian frowned. The fish shadow was not visible, but he could already feel the strong wind blowing towards him. It was like a sharp blade that could tear everything apart. Facing Dugu Ni's crazy punch, Nyetian's face was as calm as still water. What gushed out his eyes was not fear, but a strong desire to fight. Since Dugu and I wanted to fight, Nyetian wouldn't be afraid. Boom! The corner of Nyetian's mouth twitched into a cold smile. Then the 9 dragon veins in his body revolved crazily. Waves of dragon chi were released and surged in the air. It was very terrifying. Feeling Nyetian's chi, Dugani's eyes couldn't help but darken. He seemed to feel that something was wrong and was very surprised. Roar! In the next moment, a giant golden dragon appeared in the endless dragon chi. It raised its head and roared at the sky. The dragon's roar shook the heavens and the earth. The moment the giant golden dragon appeared, everyone felt a wild pressure coming towards them. They felt a tightness in their chests, as if they were about to suffocate. The crowd retreated and looked at Nyetian and Dugu and I in fear. They didn't expect the two to be so terrifying. Boom! In the next moment, the golden fish shadow and the giant golden dragon collided. An explosion sounded in the air and waves of chi spread out. Everything within a few thousand meters was directly crushed. Chi, chi, chi. Violent explosions sounded continuously. The two huge forces collided with each other as if they wanted to tear each other apart. Mo Ihan and Mo Lingshan hid tens of thousands of meters away and watched the violent scene from afar. Her eyes couldn't help but tremble violently. At this moment, she realized that she had greatly underestimated Nye Tian's battle strength. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, she wouldn't have believed that this level of collision actually happened between two intermediate deities. Even a late-stage advanced deity, or even a peak high god, might not have such terrifying battle strength. Roar! At this moment, the dragon aura around the crimson golden dragon exploded again. With a roar, violent dragon aura surged and turned into rolling airwaves that pressed forward. The golden fish shadow couldn't withstand it anymore and collapsed. Then, endless dragon chi rushed towards Dugu and I like a raging sea. Chapter 16:35. Boom! In the air, Dugani's figure was engulfed by the raging dragon energy and disappeared without a trace. The sudden scene caused everyone to suck in a breath of cold air, and their gazes began to tremble. Even though Dugu and I was so powerful, he was still defeated by Nye Tian. Nye Tian's figure stood in the air and his eyes were shining. He said coldly, Dugu and I, don't hide anymore. Come out. Everyone was stunned as they looked at the void filled with dragon chi. Nietian, you are really powerful. I have underestimated you. The void trembled slightly, and a figure came out from the dragon energy. It was Duguin. Duguin was covered in blood, and he looked very embarrassed. However, his eyes were fierce and his aura was very stable. You are also very powerful. You can actually block an attack from my sovereign dragon blood. Nietian laughed and replied coldly. Sovereign dragon blood, after being enhanced by the 3 forbidden skills, was at least several times more powerful than before. Even an expert at the peak of the high-level deity stage would not be able to withstand the attack just now. However, Duguin easily withstood it. It was enough to show how powerful he was. Duguin looked very embarrassed, but he was not seriously injured. It was just a flesh wound, which was not painful or itchy. Nietian, I am very curious. Why is your sovereign dragon blood able to ignore the weakening of the 100 virtual body? Duguin's eyes were filled with killing intent. The blood on his body gradually dispersed, and he spoke in a deep voice. He had obviously activated the 100 virtual boundary. Why was Nietian's sovereign dragon blood still so terrifying? It seemed that it was not affected by the 100 virtual body at all. Duguin remembered that Nietian's sovereign dragon blood could not resist the 100 virtual boundary previously. He could feel that Nietian's supreme dragon vein had indeed become stronger, but it was definitely not strong enough to ignore the 100 virtual body. Duguin, do you think you're the only one with a barrier? Niet Tianling sneered, his eyes filled with disdain. The reason why the supreme dragon vein wasn't suppressed by the 100 void barrier was because Nietian had activated the forbidden space barrier. He knew that Duguin was not an ordinary martial artist, so he didn't dare to be careless. As it turned out, Nietian was very wise. If he hadn't activated the forbidden space galaxy, he would have suffered a great loss in the previous collision. Sage Duguin's arm, combined with the power of the 100 void body, was extremely strong. If Shao Chun only used the supreme dragon bloodline, he would not be able to resist it. One had to admit that the sage's arm was indeed more powerful in Duguin's hands than in Shui Wuxuang's. Duguin was a freak. Nietian, I really underestimated you. Duguin's eyes darkened. He immediately sensed the existence of the forbidden space barrier. Then he looked at Mo Ihan and Mo Ihan and said, You've protected the lives of these 2 girls. But how long can you protect them? You don't even know who wants to kill them. If you go against those people, you will only end up with one thing, death. Duguin's eyes were sharp, and his aura gradually converged. His skinny figure stood in the air like a skeleton. How to protect them is my business. You don't need to worry about it. Nietianling responded coldly. He was very arrogant. Humph. Duguin sneered and shook his head slightly. He turned around and said to the people behind him, Let's go. Those cultivators obviously obeyed Duguin. They turned around and left without hesitation. Nietian, I hope we'll have a chance to meet again. Before Duguin left, he smiled cold. Then, his figure flashed and disappeared into the void. There will definitely be. Nietian looked at Duguin's back, and the corners of his mouth curled into a cold smile as he spoke coldly. This time, he didn't have a life and death battle with Duguin because he felt that it was not the right time. The Mo sisters were present. If others attacked them while he was fighting with Duguin, it would be troublesome. Nietian was not sure about Duguin's strength. It should be known that Duguin had not used the Eye of the Devil's Knight yet. If the 2 of them had a life and death battle, it would definitely be a fierce one. It would not be easy for Nietian to kill Duguin. This person is quite strong. His trump card is also very strong. At this time, the fat cat's voice rang out. It smiled playfully and said, Apart from you, he is the most monstrous person I have ever seen. Nietian frowned and couldn't help but laugh. He said, This person is an old opponent of mine in the higher planes. I have fought with him many times. Although I always gained the upper hand, I was unable to kill him. It's not bad to have such an opponent. He can make you feel pressured. The fat cat smiled and disappeared. Duguin was indeed a strong opponent. Fortunately, Nietion's strength had increased fast enough. Otherwise, it would be hard to say who would win this battle. Big brother Nietion, are you all right? The MO sisters walked over and asked worriedly. I'm fine. Nietion smiled faintly. His expression was calm. Big brother Nietion, I'm sorry. I doubted you just now. Mo Ihan looked at Nietion and said embarrassedly, It's not your fault to be on guard. Nietion laughed. He had noticed it before. Because he knew Dugu and I, Mo Ihan thought that he and Dugu and I were on the same side. However, this was nothing. Anyone would have suspected it. Miss Mo, why are these people chasing after you? Nietion became cold. He thought for a while and couldn't help but ask. First, the strange short cultivator appeared. Then, Dugu and I and the others appeared. They all came for the Mo sisters. Moreover, they all wanted to kill them. This made Nietion very confused. This, Mo Ihan couldn't help but feel awkward, as if she had something she couldn't say. Her gaze inadvertently fell on Mo Lingshan. Nietion observed Mo Ihan's reaction. He couldn't help but look at Mo Lingshan. He wondered in his heart, is there something strange about this little girl called Shan? Nietion felt Mo Lingshan's body with his divine sense. He didn't find anything strange. He couldn't help but feel even more confused. Nietion, there is something wrong with this little girl called Shan. At this time, Fat Cat's voice sounded again. There was a strange look in her eyes. What's wrong? Nietion stared blankly for a moment. For the little fat cat to have such a reaction, Mo Lingshan definitely had something amazing on her. Big brother Nietion, actually Shan and I came to Sinluo Ghost Domain to... Before Fat Cat could say anything, Mo Ihan opened her mouth. She seemed to have hesitated for a long time and finally wanted to tell the truth. Ihan! At this moment, a furious roar suddenly rang out in the air, directly interrupting Mo Ihan. Afterwards, a figure appeared in the sky and landed beside Mo Ihan immediately. Nietion's gaze changed slightly. He looked at the person. It was a middle-aged man. His facial features were resolute, and his eyes were sharp. He could tell with a single glance that he was a vicious person. Late overgod, Nietion could not help but cry out inside after sensing the middle-aged man's strength. He was extremely shocked. He had never thought that the middle-aged man would actually be so powerful. He had reached late overgod. Only the palace masters of the divine palace possessed such strength. Second uncle, Mo Ihan called out in surprise and joy when she saw the middle-aged man. She was clearly extremely happy. Second uncle, why have you only just come? Mo Lingshan looked at the middle-aged man and asked innocently. Chapter 1636. The middle-aged man suddenly looked at Nietion and seemed to notice something. A strong killing intent surged around him. Nietion felt the killing intent and couldn't help but frown. This middle-aged man was Mo Ihan and Mo Lingshan's second uncle, Mo Yanwei. Second uncle, he is Nietion. He is a new friend that Shan and I met on the divine boat. If it wasn't for big brother Nietion, Shan and I would have been in danger. Mo Ihan also noticed Mo Yanwei's strange expression and quickly explained. Mo Yanwei's face was gloomy as if he didn't hear Mo Ihan. He looked away from Nietion and said, let's go. Second uncle. Seeing that Mo Yanwei had turned around, Mo Ihan couldn't help but frown. She looked slightly embarrassed and looked at Nietion apologetically, not knowing what to say. Miss Mo, goodbye. Nietion's reaction was very calm as he said with a faint smile. Big brother Nietion, goodbye. Mo Ihan smiled awkwardly and left with Mo Yanwei. Nietion looked at the backs of the three of them and couldn't help but laugh. He murmured, did I do something wrong? Why is this guy so hostile? Mo Yanwei was very hostile to Nietion. If Mo Ihan hadn't explained, this guy would probably have attacked. Nietion also couldn't understand why Mo Yanwei was so hostile to him. Nietion, don't bother about them. Let's go. At this time, Fat Cat's voice sounded, and it seemed a little excited. Fat, you just said that Mo Lingshan is not right. What is wrong? Nietion suddenly thought of Fat Cat's reaction and couldn't help but ask. Also, Mo Ihan obviously wanted to say something, but was interrupted by Mo Yanwei, who suddenly rushed over. That little girl has already been taken away by her second uncle. Don't worry about her. Just focus on your own matters. Fat Cat chuckled. He did not want to tell Tian about Mo Lingshan. Tian smiled bitterly. Since Fat Cat didn't want to tell him, there was nothing he could do. In any case, Mo Lingshan had a second uncle with the strength of a main god, so there was no need for him to worry. Moreover, that second uncle was very hostile towards him, so there was no need for him to get involved. Tian no longer thought about the Mo sisters and immediately went to the Sunluo ghost domain. Sunluo Ghost Realm was surrounded by an endless dark forest. There were two main cities in the central region, Sunluo City and Ghost King City. The two cities were very close to each other and were connected to each other. A moment later, Tian's figure appeared at the junction between Sunluo City and Guiwang City. He looked at the two cities and finally decided to go to Guiwang City first. Originally, Tian wanted to go to Sunluo City, but because of the Ghost King's wedding, he had to go to Guiwang City first. He had a faint premonition that the 72nd wife that the Ghost King Palace Lord was going to marry was very likely to be Rui Qinyu. Tian entered Guiwang City and strolled on the wide street. This place was not much different from other cities. It was also very lively and bustling. However, the warriors here did not seem very friendly. It gave people a kind of oppressive feeling, as if someone would suddenly attack you in the next moment. Tian asked around and found out that the Ghost King's wedding was in half a month. 3 days later, the Ghost King Arena would open and the Ghost King would appear in person. There were still 3 days before the Ghost King Arena started, so Tian was not in a hurry. Next, Tian found a restaurant and asked for a room. He was in a rest for 3 days while waiting for the Ghost King Arena to start. Tian, since you have nothing to do now, go out for a walk. Maybe your luck is good, and you can find some news about the 7 leaf dragons tongue orchid. Fat Cat said to Tian with a faint smile. All right. Tian nodded and smiled, then left the room. Tian asked around and found out that the biggest herb market in Guiwang City was the Ghost King Herbal Garden. He decided to go there to try his luck. Not long after, Tian's figure appeared in front of a strange building. Ghost King Herbal Garden, it's here. Tian looked at the building in front of him and said with a faint smile, Ghost King Herbal Garden covers the whole world. I wonder how my luck will be. The Ghost King Herbal Garden was very famous in Guiwang City. It was said to cover the whole world. There was even a saying in Guiwang City, there is no herb that can't be found in the Ghost King Herbal Garden. The Ghost King Herbal Garden's exterior was very strange. It looked like a hand that drilled out from the ground, grabbing towards the sky, giving people a very fierce feeling. Tian didn't hesitate and directly entered the herbal garden. The Ghost King Herbal Garden's people were also dressed very strangely, all wearing ghost masks and black clothes, looking a bit gloomy. Mister, how can I help you? Just as he stepped into the herbal garden's hall, a sweet voice sounded. Then a small figure appeared in front of Tian, wearing a ghost mask. This was obviously a young girl. Even though she was dressed in black, one could still see the girl's exquisite figure. Tian looked at the other party, smiled, and said, I want to buy some herbs. Okay, please follow me. The ghost mask girl smiled and led the way. Under the ghost mask girl's guidance, Tian looked through all 5 halls of the Ghost King Herbal Garden, but couldn't find the 7 leaf dragon's tongue orchid. Mister, is there no herb you need here? The ghost mask girl seemed a little impatient. Her voice was a lot colder. No. Tian smiled faintly. His reaction was very calm. He directly took out a lesser godhead and threw it to the ghost mask girl, saying, Thank you. The ghost mask girl was stunned. She didn't expect Tian to be so generous, actually taking out a lesser godhead as a tip. Mister, what herb do you need? Tell Little Butterfly. Little Butterfly will definitely help you find it. Seeing Tian being so generous, the ghost masked girl's attitude immediately changed 180 degrees, becoming incomparably enthusiastic. Forget it. Your Ghost King Herbal Garden is just a name. It doesn't have the herbs I need. The Ghost King Herbal Garden's so-called covering the whole world is just a joke. Tian's brows twitched slightly, a faint smile on his face, but his voice was very loud, resounding in the hall. As he spoke, his gaze inadvertently fell on a dark corner. This little butterfly was stunned for a moment, seemingly a little embarrassed. This was the first time someone commented on the Ghost King herbal garden like this. As soon as Nia Tion's voice fell, the surrounding people all looked at him strangely. So blatantly calling the Ghost King herbal garden a joke. Wasn't this a provocation? Behind the Ghost King herbal garden was the Ghost King celestial palace. Nia Tion was simply courting death by doing this. Old fart, still not coming out. However, Nia Tion didn't pay attention to the others. He stepped forward and prepared to leave, at the same time looking at the dark corner, secretly laughing in his heart. He had long noticed that ever since he entered the Ghost King herbal garden, there had been a pair of eyes staring at him from the dark, secretly observing his every move. The reason why he said it so blatantly was to force the person behind him to come out. As Nia Tion walked down step by step, his heart was actually a little nervous. Wait! At this time, an old and low voice sounded, and a skinny figure walked out from the dark corner. Chapter 1637. Nia Tion looked at the scrawny old man. When he saw the latter's face clearly, his eyes couldn't help but tremble in shock. The scrawny old man stood there like a withered tree branch that could be blown away by a gust of wind. This scrawny old man didn't wear a ghost mask. Instead, his face was exposed. The scrawny old man's face was the scrawny old man's. It was riddled with holes, so much so that one could even see the white bones of his face. It was an extremely frightening sight. Nia Tion didn't expect this old man to look like this. Manor Lord. The girl named Xiao Dai was frightened when she saw the scrawny old man. She screamed and bowed deeply, not daring to look at him. The surrounding people also lowered their heads, showing their utmost respect. In the entire hall, only Nia Tion looked directly at the scrawny old man's face without any hesitation. This scrawny old man was the Ghost King Herb Manor's Manor Lord, Gui Shanquan. Apart from being the Manor Lord, Gui Shanquan also had another identity, one of the two deputy palace lords of the Ghost King Palace. Old mister, is there anything I can help you with? Nia Tion regained his composure and looked at Gui Shanquan with a faint smile. This old man is the Manor Lord, Gui Shanquan. Earlier, you said that the Ghost King Herb Manor has everything under the heavens was a joke. This old man hopes that you can take back your words. Gui Shanquan said in a deep voice. His voice was like a sigh from hell, giving off an extremely gloomy feeling. Although Gui Shanquan didn't release any aura, and even his eyes were calm, his words made people feel a strong sense of oppression. He was the Manor Lord, so of course he wouldn't allow others to tarnish the Manor's reputation. Manor Lord, I'm afraid I can't take back my words. Nia Tion's reaction was very calm. He smiled faintly and said, I've looked through all 5 halls of the Ghost King Herb Manor, but I couldn't find the herbs I needed. Saying that the Ghost King Herb Manor has everything under the heavens. If this isn't a joke, then what is? His calm voice resounded in the hall, but was like a sudden clap of thunder, causing everyone to stiffen. Nia Tion didn't show the slightest bit of fear when facing Gui Shanquan. This courage was too terrifying. Everyone felt that Nia Tion was either a fool or a madman. Gui Shanquan's gaze suddenly tightened. He did not expect Nia Tion to have such a reaction. There was a strange look in his eyes, but he held it in. After all, there were so many people watching. If he were to make a move directly, it would damage the reputation of the herbal manor. Since you said that the Ghost King herbal manor doesn't have the herbs you need, then please tell me the herbs. This old man will personally help you find them. Gui Shanquan suppressed the anger in his heart and said coldly. Sure. Nia Tion smiled playfully and said directly, I need the 7-leaf dragon's tongue orchid. Please help me find it, Villa Lord. 7-leaf agave orchid? Hearing Nia Tion's words, everyone stared blankly because they had never heard of this medicinal ingredient before. They were all confused. 7-leaf agave orchid. Gui Shanquan was also stunned when he heard this name. However, his expression was clearly different from the others. It wasn't confusion, but shock. Everyone saw that Gui Shanquan was also stunned. They couldn't help but look at Nia Tion and started discussing. What nonsense is this kid talking about? What seven-leaf agave orchid? Right? I've lived for so long, but I've never heard of seven-leaf agave orchid. This kid must have made up this name. This kid is here to cause trouble. This kid must have eaten a bear's heart and a leopard's gall. He actually dared to come to the Ghost King Herbal Manor to cause trouble. He's simply courting death. As the crowd discussed among themselves, the way they looked at Niet Tian became even more vicious. All of you shut up. Just as everyone was happily talking, Gue Shanquan suddenly roared. His whole body released a cold aura that enveloped the entire hall. Everyone felt a strong oppressive force and a feeling of suffocation in their chests. They quickly shut their mouths and lowered their heads, not daring to move or speak. Niet Tian was completely unafraid of Gue Shanquan's aura. The corner of his mouth curled into a faint smile, and he said provocatively, "Villa Lord, can you help me find the seven-leaf agave orchid? If you can't find it, isn't the Ghost King Herbal Manor's reputation of covering the whole world just a joke?" "You." Gue Shanquan's old face tightened. His wrinkled face looked even more ferocious. "Villa Lord, if you have nothing else to say, then I'll take my leave." Niet Tian smiled faintly and turned around to leave. Gue Shanquan's strength was at the peak of high god. This person was clearly not a battle-type warrior. He should be a very high-ranked god alchemist. With Niet Tian's current battle strength, as long as he wasn't a lord god expert, he could leave safely. Wait! Just as Niet Tian turned around, Gue Shanquan's voice sounded again. He said cold, "Did I say that I can't find the seven-leaf agave orchid?" Niet Tian's figure froze. His expression couldn't help but change. He exclaimed in his heart, "The Ghost King Herbal Manor really has the seven-leaf agave orchid." Niet Tian suddenly turned around. His eyes flashed with a blazing divine light. He said, "Villa Lord, with your status, you wouldn't lie to me, would you?" "Why would I lie to you?" Gue Shanquan replied cold. He then said, "Please follow me." Niet Tian was taken aback for a moment, and then hesitated. He was a little worried. If Gue Shanquan brought him into a killing formation, then it would be troublesome, no matter how he looked at it. Gue Shanquan was not a good person. "Don't worry, I'm not as despicable as you think." Gue Shanquan could tell what Niet Tian was thinking. He said cold with a calm face, "Niet Tian, follow him." Fat Cat was also very excited. She urged Niet Tian. "Okay." Niet Tian nodded and followed Gue Shanquan. A moment later, Gue Shanquan and Niet Tian came to a long passage. Before entering the passage, Niet Tian felt a bone-chilling cold. He saw that the passage in front was actually sealed by mysterious ice. The cold air in the space was unusually strong. "Follow me," Gue Shanquan said and stepped into the passageway. Niet Tian also did not hesitate and entered the mysterious ice passage. The mysterious ice passage was thousands of meters long. The deeper one went, the colder it got. Fortunately, Niet Tian's martial body was strong. He didn't care about this kind of cold. "It's here." Gue Shanquan came to the end of the mysterious ice passage. In front of him was an ice room made of the coldest, mysterious ice. Niet Tian saw a blue light surging through the ice room. It was very strange. Gue Shanquan made a hand seal. The door of the ice room slowly opened. He looked back at Niet Tian and said, "Please." Niet Tian was stunned. Without hesitation, he stepped into the ice room. As soon as he stepped into the ice room, the scene that greeted his eyes caused Niet Tian to freeze in place. In the room, an ice blue flower floated in the air. It bloomed layer by layer, releasing a dreamlike ice blue halo that filled the whole room. The ice blue flower was crystal clear. The seven leaves were hanging in the air like seven tentacles. They were thin and transparent. It was extremely beautiful. "This is..." Niet Tian looked at the ice blue flower in front of him. He was stunned for a full 10 seconds. Chapter 1638. Inside the ice room, Niet Tian and Fat Cat's voices rang out at the same time. Niet Tian had never imagined that Gue Shanquan would actually bring him to the seven-leaf agave orchid. After a long time, Niet Tian finally calmed down and his expression softened a lot. At this time, Gue Shanquan entered the ice room, and the door suddenly closed. Nietion's eyes narrowed, and his expression darkened. Gue Shanquan wouldn't kill him in the ice room, would he? But Nietion wasn't afraid. Gue Shanquan only had the strength of a peak high god, and he wasn't a battle-type martial artist. If they really fought, Nietion would definitely be able to kill him in a second. Little brother, how should I address you? Gue Shanquan suddenly looked at Nietion, and his tone and voice had changed to become very gentle. Nietion was stunned. Gue Shanquan's change caught him off guard. My name is Nietion. Nietion frowned and said indifferently, Nietion, good name. Gue Shanquan smiled, and there was a hint of slyness in his eyes. Villa Lord, if you have something to say, just say it. Nietion couldn't stand Gue Shanquan's sudden change, and said cold. Gue Shanquan looked at Nietion and let out a long sigh and said, I didn't expect to see a god-devil nascent embryo body here. Nietion's eyes trembled when he heard Gue Shanquan's words, and he was very surprised. The aura of his god-devil nascent embryo was concealed by the colored glass energy, and even a paramount god wouldn't be able to detect it. But Gue Shanquan was able to. This was too strange. No wonder Gue Shanquan had been secretly observing Nietion ever since he entered the Ghost King Herbal Manor. It turned out that he had discovered the god-devil nascent embryo. Villa Lord, what do you want? Nietionling said coldly, and his eyes were filled with coldness. If Gue Shanquan threatened him with the secret of the god-devil nascent embryo, he would definitely kill him. Don't be nervous. I won't reveal the secret of the fiend god nascent embryo. I just want to make a deal with you. Gue Shanquan smiled faintly, his eyes as deep as water. Speak. Nietion didn't waste any time and spoke coldly. Nietion, you've already seen the seven-leaf agave. Gue Shanquan's expression turned serious as he said, You must have a good understanding of this herb since you came for the seven-leaf agave orchid. As for how valuable it is, I won't say any more. As long as you can help me obtain one thing, not only will I not reveal the secret of the fiend god nascent embryo, I will even give you the seven-leaf dragon's tongue orchid. How about it? After that, Gue Shanquan looked at Nietion with a sharp glint in his eyes. What is it? Nietion asked in a cold tone. The opposing blood pills recipe. Gue Shanquan's eyes flickered as he said in a heavy tone. Nietion was stunned. He didn't expect Gue Shanquan to want a recipe. You don't need to know what the opposing blood pill is. As long as you help me obtain the recipe, I will give you the seven-leaf dragon's tongue orchid. Gue Shanquan said in a deep voice, his eyes filled with desire. Nietion frowned and looked puzzled. He didn't know what the opposing blood pill's recipe was, that it was worth Gue Shanquan's seven-leaf dragon's tongue orchid. You're a medicine slave. Just at this moment, a strange cry suddenly rang out, and then the little fat cat's figure appeared on Nietion's shoulder, its huge blue eyes staring straight at Gue Shanquan. What is this thing? Gue Shanquan was startled by the fat cat and couldn't help but scream. I'm a nine-tailed chinchilla. I'm not a thing. Fat cat chuckled, then looked at Gue Shanquan playfully and said, You're a medicine slave. Someone used the opposing blood pill and planted the opposing blood evil seal on your body, right? You. Gue Shanquan was stunned. His eyes were filled with astonishment, and he said, How did you know? You're a medicine slave. Nietion was also stunned. He didn't react for a long time. He was an alchemist, so of course he knew what a medicine slave was. The so-called medicine slave was a person who helped alchemists test medicines. This kind of person's body was very strange, and they could test the medicinal properties of various medicines. Nietion never thought that the dignified Ghost King Herbal Garden's master was actually a medicine slave. I want to know. Fat Cat looked at Gue Shanquan, chuckled, and said, The opposing blood pill doesn't feel good, right? Fortunately, you have the seven-leaf dragon's tongue orchid to extend your life. Otherwise, you wouldn't have survived until today. You want to know the opposing blood pill's recipe because you want to use it to deduce the cure, right? Gue Shanquan's eyes widened. He didn't expect Fat Cat to know everything. If this was really sensed, then Fat Cat's perceptive ability was too terrifying. Hearing this, Nyetian also understood. The reason why Gue Shanchuan's face was full of holes was because of the opposing blood pill's poison. In order to save himself, he needed the opposing blood pill's recipe. Only with the recipe could he think of a cure. But Nyetian was very curious. With Gue Shanchuan's identity, who could make him take the opposing blood pill? How can I get the opposing blood pill's recipe? Nyetian became cold and asked. The Ghost King Arena. Gue Shanchuan's eyes trembled and said, In 3 days, the Ghost King Arena will open. As long as you can defeat the Ghost King Palace's warriors, you can ask the Ghost King Palace's master for the opposing blood pill's recipe. Huh? Nyetian frowned and said, It seems that the opposing blood pill's recipe is in the hands of the Ghost King Palace's master. Yes. Gue Shanquan nodded helplessly. At this time, Nyetian finally understood. The person who made Gue Shanquan take the opposing blood pill was none other than his boss, the Ghost King Palace's master. The Ghost King Palace's master must have made him take the opposing blood pill in order to better control Gue Shanquan. This was a method commonly used by black-bellied bosses to control their subordinates. It was very useful. But Gue Shanquan didn't want to be controlled anymore, so he wanted to get rid of the opposing blood pill's poison. Nyetian frowned and couldn't help but laugh, saying, Even if I defeat the Ghost King Palace's warriors and ask the Ghost King Palace's master for the opposing blood pill, will he really give it to me? The opposing blood pill could even be controlled by someone like Gue Shanquan. How could the Ghost King Palace's master easily hand it over? Don't worry, he will definitely give it to you. Gue Shanquan smiled strangely, but very firmly said, As long as you put forward the conditions to the Ghost King Palace's master, whether he gives you the opposing blood pill or not, I will consider that you have fulfilled the conditions. After that, the 7-leaf dragon's tongue orchid is yours. Nyetian's eyes narrowed, and he even suspected that he had heard wrong. If the Ghost King Palace's master didn't hand over the opposing blood pill's pill formula, Gue Shanquan wouldn't get anything. But he was still willing to hand over the 7-leaf dragon's tongue orchid, which was too strange. Okay, it's a deal. At this time, without waiting for Nyetian to speak, Fat Cat first responded on his behalf and very readily agreed to Gue Shanchuan's condition. It's a deal. Gue Shanquan smiled happily and agreed. Nyetian, let's go. Fat Cat smiled, indicating that Nyetian could leave. Goodbye. Nyetian no longer delayed and turned to leave. Gue Shanquan opened the door of the ice room and personally sent Nyetian away. After leaving the Ghost King Herbal Garden, Nyetian frowned, puzzled, and couldn't help but ask, Fat, is there something strange about this Gue Shanquan? Why is he willing to give me the 7-leaf dragon's tongue orchid when I can't get the opposing blood pill's pill formula? Don't think too much about it. Let's just prepare for the Ghost King Arena 3 days from now. Little Fat Cat chuckled, looking extremely excited. Chapter 1639. 3 days later, in the Ghost King City's arena. In the center of the arena, the hall that could hold tens of thousands of people was already packed with people. The Ghost King Arena was a grand event before the Ghost King's wedding. No one knew why the Ghost King Palace Master would hold a Ghost King Arena before his wedding. Today was the first day of the Ghost King Arena, and everyone wanted to join in the fun. The rules of the Ghost King Arena were very simple. If you felt that you had the strength, you could enter the arena. As long as you could defeat 20 challengers, you'd have the chance to fight with the Arena Master arranged by the Ghost King Palace. If you beat the Arena Master, you would get a Ghost King order, and then use the Ghost King order to make a request to the Ghost King Palace Master. In principle, there were no restrictions on the request, and you could make any request. However, anyone with a bit of brains would act according to their own strength. It was impossible for the Ghost King Palace Master to kill people like the Sacred Guild Master and the Wind and Cloud Alliance Master. There were a total of 3 Ghost King arenas, namely the Lower God Arena, the Middle God Arena, and the Upper God Arena. Anyone could participate in the 3 arenas, because each arena had a powerful restriction. For example, the Lower God Arena had a Lower God restriction. Even if an upper god entered, his strength would be suppressed to the peak of lower god. Today, the arena was the lower god arena. At this moment, a silver-haired figure appeared outside the lower god arena, staring at a martial artist in the arena with sword-like eyes. This silver-haired figure was none other than Nye Tion. Fat, there's no problem with the arena's restriction, right? Nye Tion looked at the arena below and released his divine sense to sense carefully. He did not find anything abnormal, but he was still worried and asked Fat Cat. No problem. Fat Cat chuckled and said, the restriction suppression is very strong. Unless it's a Lord-level powerhouse, it's impossible to break it. That's good. Nye Tion smiled faintly. The Ghost King Arena did not allow Lord-level powerhouses to participate. It seemed that the people from the Ghost King Palace were very obedient and did not tamper with the restriction. Who else? Just at this moment, the cultivator in the arena roared. His hair and beard stood on end. His entire person was like an enraged lion, extremely insolent. Nye Tion had been watching from the side for a long time. This martial artist was called Liang Shi. His original strength was at the peak of the mid-god stage. However, after entering the arena, his strength was suppressed to that of a peak of the mid-god stage. Liang Shi had already defeated 13 martial artists in a row. He only needed to defeat 7 more martial artists, and he would be qualified to challenge the Ghost King Palace's low-god arena lord. The crowd looked at the insolent Liang Shi in the arena and could not help but discuss. Liang Shi is too shameless. He is a peak god, so he should have gone to the god arena. Why did he come to the demigod arena to join in the fun? There are restrictive spells on the arena. The intermediate deity is only at the peak of the lower deity realm. Liang Shi's battle prowess is terrifying. Why can't he come to the arena of a lower deity? This guy is too violent. The dozens of cultivators who fought with him before were either seriously injured or killed. Who would dare to fight him now? The corner of Nye Tion's mouth couldn't help but twitch as he listened to the crowd's discussion. Although there were restrictive spells on the arena, the stronger martial artists still had some advantages. It could only be said that the advantage was not huge. Let me try. At this moment, an angry roar sounded. Immediately, a figure stepped out of the air and landed on the arena. This person was a late-stage, mid-god stage martial artist. He was tall and sturdy, with bulging muscles all over his body. One look, and anyone could tell that he was a strength-type martial artist. Bang! The moment this martial artist landed, the entire arena shook, and a layer of earth was stirred up. Go to hell. There were no rules in the Ghost King Arena. After that person landed, he roared and immediately attacked. He punched out. Suddenly, a mountain-like fist shadow pressed down on Liang Shi, causing the entire arena to shake. What a strong force! The crowd could feel a strong wind blowing on their faces and couldn't help but exclaim, "You overestimate yourself." Facing the huge fist shadow, Liang Shi sneered. Immediately, he struck out with his palm. Wild palm energy bloomed and surged with an incomparably surging momentum. It was not the slightest bit weaker than the fist shadow. Boom! The fist and palm collided. With a loud bang, the arena shook and immediately, billowing waves of air exploded. Under the gaze of countless pairs of eyes, the challenger was directly sent flying. He fell to the ground like a pile of mud and couldn't get up again. One palm, just one palm, and Liang Shi finished off his challenger. Trash! Liang Shi glanced at the challenger and roared in an extremely insolent manner. This was the 14th person he had defeated. Next, he only needed to defeat 6 more people, and he could challenge the Ghost King Palace's low god arena lord. Who else? Liang Shi's aura was violent. He suddenly raised his head and looked at the crowd on the spectator stand. He arrogantly said, "You cowards, do you only know how to watch the show from up there? Come down and fight me if you have the guts." The crowd's eyes trembled. For a moment, no one dared to accept the challenge. Liang Shi was too ruthless and powerful. He was really not easy to deal with. Nye Tion looked at the arrogant Liang Shi and couldn't help but shake his head with a smile. Of course, he wasn't afraid of Liang Shi. He just didn't want to make a move. The Ghost King Arena had just started. It was only the foreplay now. It was too early to make a move. Moreover, Liang Shi was too weak. Nie Tian had no desire to make a move at all. Even if Nie Tian defeated Liang Shi, he would still have to face the challenges of 19 people. It was really troublesome. A bunch of trash. Liang Shi almost went crazy at this moment. He pointed at the crowd in front of him and cursed. Following that, a few martial artists couldn't bear to watch any longer and stepped into the arena. However, the result was the same as the previous challengers. They were all crippled by Liang Shi with one palm. Nie Tian had long noticed that Liang Shi was a martial artist with the power of bloodline. His martial body was far stronger than the average martial artist. Therefore, very few martial artists of the same strength were his match. By this time, Liang Shi had already won 19 matches. As long as he won one more match, he would be able to fight against the low god arena lord. Therefore, his entire being became excited, as though he had gone mad, shouting and yelling at the crowd. "You bunch of ants, hurry up and fight me. You're all King cowards. You're all cowards in your mother's womb." Liang Shi cursed crazily and became more and more arrogant. Nie Tian shook his head and smiled bitterly. Such a person was like an idiot. "I'll do it." At this moment, a clear voice sounded. A sword intent pierced through the air. Immediately, a beautiful figure appeared in midair. "It's a woman." Everyone was stunned. They looked at the figure in midair and exclaimed in unison, "It's a female swordsman." Someone saw the long sword on the back of the figure in midair and was stunned. Mo Han. Nie Tian looked at the figure. It was a very familiar face. Mo Han. He didn't expect Mo Han to appear at this time. Could it be that she has something to ask the Ghost King Palace Lord? Nie Tian frowned and asked doubtfully. Chapter 1640. Mo Han's figure stood in the air above the low god arena. Sword aura surged around her and was extremely sharp. The next moment, she moved and landed on the arena. Her pretty face turned cold as she said, "I'll be your opponent." Liang Shi looked at Mo Han. He was stunned at first, but then he laughed. A strange light flashed in his eyes as he said, "Little girl, you can be my woman, but you're far from being my opponent." Liang Shi's words caused the crowd to roar with laughter. As a woman, Mo Han appeared to be very weak. Adding that she was only at the peak of the low god realm, she seemed even weaker. After being teased by Liang Shi, everyone took her as a joke. "Watch your mouth." Mo Han frowned and said in a cold tone. Her eyes revealed a hint of killing intent. Liang Shi suddenly felt a chilling, murderous intent. His expression couldn't help but change as his gaze trembled slightly. However, he was an expert who had experienced hundreds of battles, so he immediately calmed down and said, "Little girl, I don't want to kill a woman. Just admit defeat." "Admit defeat?" Mo Han sneered as if she had heard a joke. "Do you think that's possible? Make your move." The next moment, Mo Han's eyes turned cold. A powerful sword aura soared into the sky. It was as if a sharp sword was lying between heaven and earth. It was extremely terrifying. What a powerful sword essence. The crowd felt the terrifying sword aura. They felt a tightness in their chests, as if they were suffocating. Their faces were filled with terror. No one had expected Mo Han to be so powerful. Just a single sword aura was enough to make people feel suffocated. Mo Han is indeed powerful. Nie Tian smiled faintly when he saw Mo Han's imposing manner. He knew that Mo Han's swordsmanship realm had reached the swordbone realm. It was no exaggeration to say that Mo Han could completely crush Liang Shi with her swordsmanship alone. "Liang Shi, I'll give you a chance. Admit defeat," Mo Han said in a cold tone as she locked her indifferent gaze on Liang Shi. The same words coming out of Mo Han's mouth were like a loud slap to Liang Shi's face. Only then did Liang Shi realize that the little girl in front of him was so terrifying. "Little girl, you are indeed very strong, but I am also weak." Liang Shi let out a low roar, and a violent aura was released from his body. Like an exploding wave, the illusion of a huge golden lion condensed around him. Bloodline power. Mo Ihan couldn't help knitting her brows when she saw the image of the golden lion behind Liang Shi. Shortly after, her expression turned calm, and she said, "That's not enough to defeat me." At this moment, Liang Shi was using the power of his bloodline. He had not used it before, because he wanted to use it against the Ghost King Palace's low god arena lord. However, Mo Ihan's appearance forced him to use his bloodline power. What a strong aura! The crowd cried out again. It turned out that Liang Shi was also very powerful. He had not used his true strength at all. Arrogant. Sensing the disdain in Mo Ihan's eyes, Liang Shi couldn't help but roar in anger. His silhouette flickered and the golden lion behind him pounced at Mo Ihan. Boom! In an instant, a vast and oppressive aura roared as if to swallow Mo Ihan. Liang Shi knew that Mo Ihan was a rare genius in swordsmanship, so he did not dare to be careless. He wanted to make the first move and seize the initiative. Facing Liang Shi's all-out attack, Mo Ihan's expression was very calm. The corner of her mouth twitched as she murmured, "One sword to defeat you." Boom! At the moment when the golden lion pounced, Mo Ihan stabbed out with her sword. Suddenly, the sword momentum around her changed. Endless sword will condensed, and a sword shadow that didn't look very big appeared. It was extremely swift and fierce like a dragon, whistling out. Boom! In midair, the two forces collided. The sword shadow was extremely powerful. It directly pierced through the golden lion's illusion, and like an arrow released from a bow, it attacked Liang Shi. Liang Shi was suddenly stunned. His eyes suddenly widened, and the fear in his heart magnified infinitely. He wanted to attack again, but it was already too late. Ah! In the next moment, a miserable howl was heard. Liang Shi's figure was directly sent flying. While he was still in the air, his body trembled, and several sword chi spurted out. The yuan meridians in his body were directly shattered. This sudden scene caused everyone to be stunned. Countless pairs of eyes became dull, not daring to believe the scene in front of them. One sword, just one sword, and Mo Ihan directly crippled Liang Shi, who had 119 consecutive battles. One had to know that Liang Shi had just used the power of his bloodline, but he still couldn't block Mo Ihan's sword. Mo Ihan was too terrifying. Mo Ihan's figure stood in the air, and a strange light flickered in her eyes. She looked at Liang Shi and said indifferently, "You've lost." Liang Shi lay on the ground like a pile of mud. He struggled to get up, but he couldn't do it at all. In the end, Liang Shi was still carried out of the arena. I didn't expect Mo Ihan to be so ruthless. Nie Tian looked at Mo Ihan, and the corner of his mouth could not help but twitch as he murmured. Mo Ihan looked very gentle, giving off a kind feeling. It was unexpected that she would be so decisive when she attacked, directly crippling Liang Shi. In fact, Nie Tian knew that Mo Ihan had already shown mercy. Given her strength, one sword strike was enough to kill Liang Shi. For some reason, Nie Tian felt that there was something about Mo Ihan that he couldn't see. Mo Ihan defeated Liang Shi in a domineering manner. The entire arena fell into a dead silence. It took a long time for the crowd to react. Next, the battles continued. Mo Ihan defeated Liang Shi, but she did not obtain his battle record. She had only defeated one person. She still had to defeat another 19 people before she was qualified to challenge the Ghost King Palace's low god arena lord. This rule was very disadvantageous to the martial artists participating in the arena battles. Even if one was powerful, defeating 19 people in a row was not an easy task. At the very least, one would consume some of their strength, and when they faced the arena lord in the end, they would naturally be at a disadvantage. Next, there was a continuous stream of people challenging Mo Ihan. It turned out that many experts did not make a move just now, and were waiting for stronger people to appear. However, Mo Ihan's swordsmanship was too strong. Everyone who fought with her was defeated with one sword strike. Soon, Mo Ihan defeated 19 people, and there was only one person left. The last person was very crucial. As long as she defeated this person, Mo Ihan would be able to challenge the arena lord. Everyone's eyes flickered, looking forward to the appearance of this last person. Let me. At this moment, an angry roar sounded. Immediately, a figure stepped out and appeared in midair. However, this cultivator hadn't even stabilized his footing when a strand of sword intent suddenly whistled out, and that cultivator didn't even have the time to react before he was directly killed. What? Everyone took a deep breath in and didn't know what had happened. Miss Mo, your swordsmanship strength is not bad. Let me have a taste of it. The next moment, a gloomy voice sounded, and immediately, a skinny figure appeared in midair. His cold eyes locked on Mo Ihan, full of killing intent. Chapter 1641. Mo Ihan easily defeated 19 challengers. However, the last challenger that appeared surprised Nyetian. It was Dugu and I. In fact, before Dugu and I appeared, someone had already appeared. However, Dugu and I killed him in one move. Dugu and I had appeared, and before he had even exchanged blows with Mo Ihan, he had already killed another martial artist in an instant. His tyrannical ferocity inspired fear in others. Who is he? He's so arrogant. He actually killed another person. Yes, this guy's a bit too much. It was the first person who stood out to challenge him. He's strong. Of course he dares to do so. This guy's also a swordsman. It'll be interesting to see him fight against the genius swordswoman in the arena. The crowd discussed. They had some expectations for Dugu and I. It's you. Mo Ihan suddenly raised her head. When she saw the skinny figure clearly, she immediately recognized Dugu and I. Miss Mo, Nyetian can protect you now, but he can't protect you forever. Floating in midair, Dugu and I smiled coldly. Then, he turned to look at Nyetian, his eyes full of provocation. Nyetian looked at Dugu and I and could not help but frown. It seemed that Dugu and I had noticed him long ago. Even if Nyetian wanted to save Dugu and I and Mo Ihan, he could not interfere in the battle. This was Gue Wong's city. Who knew how many high god experts were hiding in the dark? There might even be over god experts. Mo Ihan and Dugu Ni's battle is going to be a disaster. Nyetian's eyes flickered as he thought to himself. It was not that he had no confidence in Mo Ihan. It was just that Dugu Ni's strength was a bit strange. Dugu and I smiled again. Then, his body moved and landed straight down. He was like a cold sword that stood upright on the arena. Mo Ihan frowned slightly. She was slightly nervous. She had personally witnessed Dugu Ni's prowess and knew how strong he was. Miss Mo, there is no grudge between us. It's just that I've been entrusted by someone to kill you. Dugu and I smiled coldly. His eyes were cold as he said, I don't think you will admit defeat so easily for the sake of your sister. Who sent you to kill me? Mo Ihan asked coldly. She had calmed down a lot. I can't tell you that. Dugu and I laughed. Then, his face turned cold, and he said, Make your move. As his cold voice faded, Dugu Ni's skinny body trembled. Suddenly, a wave of sword force whistled out and rushed towards Mo Ihan. When Mo Ihan sensed the powerful sword intent rushing towards her, her beautiful eyes couldn't help but tremble. After which, she slashed out with her sword as her sword intent blossomed, as a sword shadow pierced through the air. Bang! The two sword intents collided. A muffled sound resounded in the air. Mo Ihan and Dugu and I retreated a few steps at the same time, increasing the distance between them. This was the first time Dugu and I had made a move. He wanted to see how strong Mo Ihan was. When Dugu and I entered the arena, he was suppressed by the restrictive spells. Therefore, he didn't dare to be careless. He knew that Mo Ihan was very strong. Her previous opponents didn't make her use her true strength. Mo Ihan's eyes became firm. She looked cold at Dugu and I. If they were outside the arena, she certainly wouldn't be Dugu Ni's opponent. However, inside the arena, Dugu Ni's strength was only at the peak of the lower god stage. This gave her a slight chance. Bang! At this time, Dugu and I slashed out with his sword again. The surging sword shadow pressed down crazily. Mo Ihan's entire body was enveloped by a terrifying sword intent. Mo Ihan also stabbed out with her sword. Her speed was extremely fast, sharp and swift. Bang! In the air above the arena, there was a continuous violent collision sound. The sword shadow was wreaking havoc in the air. The crowd was shocked. They didn't expect these two people to be so strong. At this time, Tian slightly frowned. Duguin didn't show his true strength. It seemed that he was playing with Mo Han. On the other hand, Mo Han was slightly strained. Soon, she couldn't hold on. Tian found that Mo Han's sword intent was of the wind attribute. It was very fast, but it wasn't powerful enough. It couldn't hurt Duguin at all. Duguin is so slow. Is he waiting for someone? Tian frowned and wondered. Duguin could have defeated or even killed Mo Han quickly. However, he didn't kill her. It seemed that he was waiting for someone. Miss Mo, if you don't use your sword seal, you'll be in danger. Duguin's figure stood in the air. He suddenly smiled sinisterly. When Tian heard Duguin's words, he couldn't help but frown. He was puzzled because he didn't feel any sword seal's aura from Mo Han. Demonic Void 100 forms, 1 strike. At this time, Duguin's figure moved. The demonic Void 100 forms in his hand released billowing demonic void chi. A dark sword shadow appeared and rushed towards Mo Han. In this sword, Duguin used a bit of his real strength. It was a fatal threat to Mo Han. Mo Han felt a murderous aura. Her beautiful eyes flickered. It seemed that she was hesitating. But in an instant, her hesitant eyes suddenly became firm. She growled, "You forced me to do this." The angry growl resounded in the space. It seemed a bit sharp. The next moment, Mo Han's body suddenly released a powerful sword intent. It was as if there was a huge sea of sword intent in her body that suddenly burst. The billowing sword intent was like a stormy sea. Mo Han's long hair fluttered in the air. Her delicate face became a bit ferocious, as if she was going to be possessed. Seeing this scene, the crowd couldn't help but gasp. They were shocked by the sword intent that Mo Han suddenly released. Tian's pupils suddenly shrank. He couldn't help but change his expression. The sword intent that was released from Mo Han's body was very violent. It also contained a kind of extremely evil power. It was extremely terrifying. Evil flowing sword seal. At the same time, Fat Cat's voice suddenly sounded. She was very surprised, and her fat body trembled. Tian was also stunned. He didn't know what evil flowing sword seal was. How could it make Fat Cat so surprised? Boom! At this time, there was a sudden explosion in the arena. Then endless sword intent surged out and actually forced Duguin to step back. Mo Han stood in the air. Sword intent surged around her. Her long hair flew wildly. She seemed to have fallen into an inexplicable kind of madness. Evil flowing sword seal finally forced out. Duguin steadied his body. He smiled playfully and said, "I really want to see how strong evil flowing sword seal, one of the 3 ancient sword seals, is." Evil flowing sword seal is released. There's only one ending for you, death. Mo Han's pair of beautiful eyes became cold. Even her voice became bone-chilling, filled with sharp killing intent. Since Duguin forced her to use evil flowing sword seal, she must kill the strong one. 3 ancient sword seals? Hearing Duguin's words, Tian couldn't help but frown. He had never heard of the 3 ancient sword seals. Chapter 1642. The Tri-Evil Sword Seal must be extraordinary for Fat Cat to be so surprised. Little Fei, what exactly is the 3 evil sword seal that Duguin mentioned? Tian calmed down a bit and asked in a deep voice. The ancient Tri-Evil Sword Seal is the collective name of the 3 most evil sword seals: the Evil Flowing Sword Seal, the 9 Evil Sword Seal, and the Evil Woman Sword Seal. Fat Cat's expression became serious and said, "Rumor has it that the Tri-Evil Sword Seal contains a terrifying power. If it is fully activated, its power is no less than the 10 strongest seals." Tian frowned and couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. He didn't expect the Tri-Evil Sword Seal to be so powerful, comparable to the 10 strongest seals. No wonder Mo Ihan reached the Swordbone realm at such a young age. The sword seal in Mo Ihan's body is the evil flowing sword seal. Why didn't I sense it? Nietian was very confused and couldn't help but ask. Since the evil flowing sword seal was so powerful, it was strange that Nietian, as a swordsman, couldn't sense the existence of the evil flowing sword seal at all. The tri-evil sword seal fuses with the swordsman's sword intent, and its aura fuses with the sword intent. When it is not activated, it is impossible to sense it. Fat Cat said in a deep voice. Even I didn't sense that Mo Ihan has the evil flowing sword seal. Of course you can't sense it either. Nietian was surprised. In fact, he had felt that there was something wrong with Mo Ihan, but he couldn't tell what it was. Only now did he realize that there was a powerful sword seal in Mo Ihan's body. The aura of the evil flowing sword seal was perfectly fused with Mo Ihan's sword intent. Unless Nietian's swordsmanship realm reached the strongest realm of the immortal state, sword and martial arts as one, he wouldn't be able to sense the existence of the evil flowing sword seal. The evil flowing sword seal is so hidden. How did Dugu and I know? In the next moment, Nietian suddenly thought of something, and his eyes couldn't help but sink. Dugu and I obviously knew that Mo Ihan had the evil flowing sword seal, and he wanted to force Mo Ihan to activate it. But the problem was, how did Dugu and I know that Mo Ihan had the evil flowing sword seal? Nietian didn't believe that Dugu and I had sensed it on his own. It was impossible. Dugani's sensory ability was definitely below Nietian's, and his sword Dao realm was the same as Nietian's sword vein realm. There's a powerful force behind Dugu and I. Fat Cat also thought of something and said solemnly. Nietian couldn't help but narrow his eyes. It seemed that there was definitely a big shot behind Dugu and I. At this time, the two people on the arena were in a stalemate. The activation of the flowing evil sword seal has indeed stunned me. However, if you think you can kill me with just a single sword seal, isn't that too much of a joke? Dugu and I coldly stared at Mo Ihan, and a cold smile appeared on his face. Arrogant, Mo Ihan roared, and the evil flowing sword intent filled his body, releasing an extremely violent aura. The space trembled slightly, as if it was groaning. In the next moment, Mo Ihan's figure moved, and the long sword in his hand suddenly stabbed out. An evil sword shadow appeared and rushed towards Dugu and I. Mo Ihan was a wind attribute warrior, and combined with the evil flowing sword intent, his power was extremely terrifying. 100 transformations of demonic void, cocoon break. Dugu's face darkened, and he didn't dare to be careless. He thrust out his sword, and a black sword shadow spurted out. Kaboom! In the air, the two sword shadows collided with a loud explosion. The two sword shadows unexpectedly collapsed at the same time, and the endless sword intent wreaked havoc in the space. What a terrifying two people! The crowd felt a wave of sword intent spread out, and they couldn't help but step back, and their faces were filled with horror. The evil flowing sword seal is indeed powerful. Seeing the scene in the air, Nietian's expression changed, and he murmured. Just now, Dugani's sword attack was launched after the 100 Void enchantment was activated. Even so, it was barely able to stand on equal footing with the evil flowing sword seal. Mo Ihan's strength was not very strong, and she was far from being able to display the full power of the evil flowing sword seal. When her strength reached the paramount god realm, and her sword principle reached the level of sword martial unity, her battle strength would be unimaginable. In the air above the arena, two figures stood tall, and their bodies were releasing terrifying sword intent. The power of the evil flowing sword seal is indeed beyond my expectation, but this battle should be over. Dugu and I looked at Mo Ihan and said with a cold smile, "The next move will decide the winner." Mo Ihan's beautiful eyes flickered, and her face was extremely cold. In the next moment, the aura around the two began to surge, and the terrifying sword intent filled the entire arena. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. An ear-piercing sound came from the void, and the sword intent collided. Is the winner going to be decided? Seeing this, Nyetian couldn't help but frown. He originally thought that Dugu and I defeating Mo Han would be an easy matter, but now, he wasn't so sure anymore. He didn't understand the evil flowing sword seal at all, and he didn't know how much power this sword seal, which was comparable to the 10 most powerful seals, could exert in Mo Han's hands. If the two were to fight outside the arena, Dugu and I would definitely have an absolute chance of winning. But at this moment, he was suppressed by the restrictions on the arena, and his strength was greatly weakened. Therefore, it was hard to tell who would win in the next move. Evil Void 100 Transformations, Devil's Knight descends. Dugu Ni's deep voice resounded in the air, and then the sword intent around him became violet. At the same time, his eyes turned a strange black color, and he looked very strange. Devil's Knight's pupil is open. Nyetian's eyes froze, and he immediately realized that Dugu and I had opened the Devil's Knight's pupil. An invisible eye power spread out and enveloped Mo Han. Mo Han felt a strange pressure appear, and she had a feeling that she couldn't breathe. Although she knew that the situation was bad, Mo Han had no choice but to fight with her life. Evil Flowing Sword Seal, 100 Wind Evil Flow. Mo Han's mouth trembled, and the 100 Wind sword in her hand emitted a sharp sword cry. Then, the sword intent around her condensed, and an evil flowing sword shadow appeared. It was thousands of meters long, and it looked like a pillar in the sky. Die! With a low roar, Mo Han no longer hesitated. She slashed down with her sword, and a huge sword force instantly bloomed. Dugu Ni's eyes trembled, and then he also slashed out with his sword. A huge sword shadow appeared, and a loud sound came from the void. Boom! The next moment, under countless surprised gazes, the two huge sword shadows collided with each other, like two ancient beasts, causing the void to shake violently. Chi, chi, chi. An ear-piercing sound came from the air, and the sword chi was raging. The entire arena was covered by the terrifying sword chi. People couldn't see Dugu and I, and Mo Han anymore. They could only see the terrifying sword chi colliding with each other. Oh no! At this time, Nyetian's eyes suddenly trembled, and he shouted in his heart. The violent sword chi didn't affect his vision at all. He saw that Mo Han was already at a disadvantage, and the black sword shadow had the upper hand, and it was pressing down on Mo Han. Chapter 1643. Seeing that Mo Han had lost, Nyetian's face darkened and his eyes flickered. He was thinking about whether he should save her or not. Nyetian, save her! At this moment, Fat Cat's voice was suddenly heard. She was very determined. Okay. Nyetian nodded. He moved and was ready to make a move. At this point, he couldn't care less. Although he had only met Mo Han once, he treated her as a friend, so he had to save her. Boom! Just when Nyetian was about to make a move, the void suddenly trembled. Then, a figure appeared and threw a palm. A shadow of a palm appeared. It was like a collapsing mountain, and it pressed towards Dugu and I. It's him! Nyetian's eyes trembled. He immediately recognized that the person who had taken action at this critical moment was none other than Mo Han's second uncle, Mo Yanwei. Nyetian's body froze, and he withdrew his aura. Mo Yanwei was an overgod. If he took action, he would definitely be able to save Mo Han. In the arena, Dugu and I suddenly felt a violent pressure appear. He couldn't help but be surprised. Seeing a terrifying shadow of a palm appear, his eyes trembled, and then he sneered. Just when the shadow of the palm was about to fall, Dugu Ni's eyes flickered and a black vortex appeared. He moved and entered the vortex directly, disappearing instantly. Seeing this, Nyetian couldn't help but shake his head and smile bitterly. He murmured, Dugu and I is really cunning. Mo Yanwei took action, but Dugu and I didn't fight him at all. Instead, he used the space-time vortex of the Eye of the Devil's Knight to leave. The Eye of the Devil's Knight could create a space-time vortex. Dugu and I had left the space-time vortex somewhere else in advance, so he could leave directly. Previously at the grand competition of the 12 Shrine, Dugu and I had used this trick. After getting Shui Wushuang's arm, he immediately ran away. Not only was Dugu and I strong, but he also had a strange talent and was ruthless. Most importantly, he was extremely cunning and never did anything he wasn't confident in. Just like in the grand competition of the 12 shrines, he left immediately after obtaining the arm of the sage. He had no intention of becoming the champion. This was where Dugu and I was wise. Mo Yanwei's figure landed on the ground. When he saw that Dugu and I had already left, his face was as gloomy as water. He immediately went to Mo Yihan's side. After confirming that Mo Yihan was fine, he felt more at ease. This Dugu and I, this move of his is really good. Seeing that Dugu and I had left, Fat Cat did not get angry. Instead, she laughed. Nie Tian shook his head slightly. Dugani's escape method was indeed very troublesome. If he could not defeat his opponent, he would run. Furthermore, he could travel through space and time. Nobody could stop him. It was even more convenient than using a space-time scroll. The next time I fight with Dugu and I must think of a way to restrain his space-time whirlpool, Nie Tian thought to himself. He knew that there would be a life-and-death battle between him and Dugu and I sooner or later. He did not want to let Dugu and I escape easily at the last moment. However, it was not easy to restrain the space-time whirlpool. Perhaps Fat Cat had a way. What happened? Only now did everyone react. They looked at the arena in astonishment. They had no idea what had happened. Mo Yihan had been lightly injured, and then a main god expert had appeared. Dugu and I had mysteriously disappeared. This was too strange. Who are you? How dare you destroy the Ghost King arena? At this moment, over a dozen masked cultivators suddenly appeared in the air above the arena. All of them surged with killing intent as they surrounded Mo Yanwei and his nephew. The eyes of the crowd could not help but tremble when they saw this. Afterwards, they became filled with burning desire. Someone had interfered in the Ghost King arena. This was equivalent to provoking the Ghost King Palace. If the cultivators of the Ghost King Palace did not stop this person, the Ghost King Palace would be humiliated. However, the cultivators of the Ghost King Palace did not take action, as they knew that they were facing a late overgod. The masked cultivators were all peak high gods. Only their leader was an early overgod. However, Mo Yanwei was a late overgod. It would be difficult for these people to stop him. Everyone, I only want to save someone. I don't want to break the rules of the Ghost King Palace. Please be merciful and let us leave. Mo Yanwei leapt up with Mo Yihan and clasped his hands at the masked cultivators around him. He was extremely polite. Mo Yanwei knew how terrifying the Ghost King Palace was. Even as a late overgod, he did not dare to fight the people of the Ghost King Palace casually. The leader was stunned. He seemed to be hesitating. If they were allowed to leave just because Mo Yanwei said a few words of respect, the Ghost King Palace would still be humiliated. Yihan, let's go. Mo Yanwei bowed slightly when he saw that the other party was not saying anything. He was about to leave with Mo Yihan. As long as he did not do anything, the cultivators of the Ghost King Palace might not dare to do anything. Mo Yanwei, do you think you can swagger off with just a few words of yours? At this moment, a cold voice rang out in the air. After that, a silhouette appeared. A face full of scars appeared before everyone. Gue Shanquan. Nie Tian could not help but be stunned when he saw the person who had suddenly appeared. This was the Lord of the Ghost King Herb Manor, Gue Shanquan, who had made a deal with him a few days ago. At this moment, Gue Shanquan was not alone. There were two other masked cultivators behind him. Their presences were extremely powerful. They were actually mid-overgods. From this, it could be seen that the Ghost King Palace was far more powerful than the 12 god palaces. Even the most powerful cloud-shattering god palace might not have so many overgods. Mr. Gue, Mo Yanwei could not help but tremble when he saw Gue Shanquan. He clearly knew Gue Shanquan. Greetings, Vice Palace Lord Gue. The dozen or so cultivators in black immediately bowed when they saw Gue Shanquan. They were very respectful. Gue Shanquan slightly waved his hand. His gloomy and cold eyes immediately shifted to Mo Yanwei. He smiled and coldly said, Mo Yanwei, do you think you can break the rules of the Ghost King Arena just because you're strong? Mr. Gue, I really did not mean to offend the Ghost King Palace. I only attacked in a hurry to save someone. Please forgive me, Mr. Gue. Mo Yanwei's face was gloomy. He knew that this matter would not end well. He had already prepared for the worst. Even if he fought with the Ghost King Palace, he would ensure Mo Yihan's safety. Forgive me? Gue Shanquan sneered and said, if everyone broke the rules of the Ghost King Arena and interfered, and then asked this old man to forgive them, then wouldn't the Ghost King Palace be a joke? Mo Yanwei's face darkened. He was extremely embarrassed. Mo Yanwei, you and I are old acquaintances. I will give you face. You can leave, but the girl beside you must stay. Gue Shanquan said in a deep voice. His eyes were cold and murderous. Although he was not strong, he controlled the killing formation in the arena. Even if there was no one else, he could use the killing formation to kill Mo Yanwei. Impossible! Before Gue Shanquan could finish his words, Mo Yanwei growled and said coldly, I must leave with her. Mo Yanwei, I've already left a path for you. But if you don't choose it, don't blame me. Gue Shanquan's eyes darkened, and his killing intent was revealed. He took a step forward and was obviously going to attack. Wait! At this moment, a calm voice was heard. Then, a figure appeared and blocked Gue Shanquan and Mo Yanwei's way. It's you! Gue Shanquan and Mo Yanwei were stunned at the same time when they saw the figure that suddenly appeared. Chapter 1644. In the air above the arena, just as Gue Shanquan and Mo Yanwei were about to fight, Nietian suddenly appeared between the two. Gue Shanquan and Mo Yanwei were stunned at the same time. They did not expect Nietian to appear at this moment. In fact, the two had long noticed Nietian's existence, but they did not expect Nietian to suddenly stand out. Brother Nietian, Mo Yihan cried out when she saw Nietian appear. She could not hide the joy in her heart. She thought that she would never see Nietian again after their last parting. She did not expect the two to reunite so soon. Nietian's sudden appearance caused the crowd to discuss among themselves. Where did this silver-haired kid come from? He actually dares to meddle in the affairs of the Ghost King Palace. Is he tired of living? This guy really has guts. He actually dares to appear among a group of over-gods and high-gods. Isn't he afraid of being killed? I wonder who this kid is. What does he want to do? The crowd looked at Nietian with very strange gazes. They were all waiting for someone to directly kick him out. The crowd wanted to watch the battle between over-gods. They did not want to be disturbed. However, Nietian's reaction was very indifferent. He nodded slightly at Mo Yihan, then looked at Gue Shanquan and said indifferently, Miss Mo Yihan is my friend. Can you give me some face and let this matter end here? His indifferent voice sounded very calm, as if he was talking about family matters. Is this kid crazy? The crowd was stunned again. After a cry, they immediately burst into laughter. Who did Nietian think he was? Did he think that Gue Shanquan would stop with just a few words? Did he think that he was an over-god? If Nietian was an over-god, perhaps Gue Shanquan would have to reconsider his words. But Gue Shanquan was just a mid-god expert who came out of nowhere. How could Gue Shanquan pay any attention to him? The crowd's eyes flickered. They directly regarded Nietian as an idiot and a madman. Mo Yanwei, Mo Yihan, and Mo Yanwei were also stunned, as if they had heard wrongly. Even Mo Yanwei wouldn't dare to speak to Gue Shanquan in such a tone when Nietian spoke to him. Mo Yihan knew that this was also the first time Nietian came to the Sanluo ghost domain, but from his appearance, it seemed like he knew Gue Shanquan. Gue Shanquan's face sank as he looked at Nietian. His expression stiffened when he sensed the determination in Nietian's eyes. If Nietian was an ordinary mid-god expert, he would have killed him without hesitation. However, Nietian had a god-fiend essence embryo. More importantly, he had made a deal with him in private. As such, Gue Shanquan had no choice but to seriously consider Nietian's request. Gue Shanquan did not make a sound, and the ghost-faced martial artists behind him were also at a loss, not daring to move. They did not know why Gue Shanquan, who had always been ruthless and decisive, suddenly became hesitant. Mr. Gue, can I take Miss Mo Ihan away now? Seeing Gue Shanchuan's silence, Nietian couldn't help but smile faintly. He took a step forward and was somewhat aggressive. At this moment, everyone was stunned, looking at Nietian with dull faces, completely unaware of what was going on. Gue Shanquan, Ghost King Herbal Manor's Villa Lord, Ghost King Palace's Deputy Palace Lord, such a character unexpectedly did not speak. This was too strange. Who is this kid? Why is Gue Shanquan so afraid of him? The crowd was puzzled, and their eyes couldn't help but flicker. Mo Yanwei and Mo Ihan were petrified. They could feel Niet Tian's domineering attitude, simply forcing Gue Shanquan to make a decision. Even Mo Yanwei didn't dare to do such a thing, so what did Niet Tian rely on? Gue Shanquan suddenly raised his head, looking gloomily at Niet Tian, and said in a heavy voice, "Do you really want to protect this girl?" Niet Tian nodded slightly, looking indifferent. "Good." Gue Shanchuan's face sank, and said in a loud voice, "I'll give you this face. You can take your people away." As his low voice fell, everyone present was stunned at the same time, and the whole place fell into a dead silence. Countless eyes looked at Gue Shanquan with a blank expression. Who would have thought that Gue Shanquan would really let Niet Tian take Mo Ihan away? "Thank you, Mr. Gue." Niet Tian smiled faintly and said, "Believe me, you will not back down from today's decision." "I hope so." Gue Shanquan responded coldly. A trace of murderous intent flashed in his eyes. Gue Shanquan was willing to give Niet Tian face, of course, for his own sake. From Niet Tian's stance, it was obvious that he must protect Mo Ihan. If Gue Shanquan refused, who knew what would happen next? Niet Tian was the person who was going to get the opposing blood pill recipe for him. So, of course, nothing could happen to him. After comprehensive consideration, Gue Shanquan decided to let Niet Tian and the others go. "Mr. Mo, Miss Mo, let's go." Niet Tian looked back at Mo Yanwei and Mo Ihan, who were still in a daze, and smiled slightly, indicating that they could leave. Only then did the Mo family's uncle and nephew react and quickly follow behind Niet Tian. Under countless surprised gazes, Niet Tian and the Mo family's uncle and nephew swaggered away. Everyone was shocked, completely unable to understand what was going on. Gue Shanchuan's eyes swept the audience, and he shouted in a cold voice, "The arena continues." After that, his silhouette flashed and he left, leaving behind a crowd of dumbfounded onlookers. After Niet Tian and the Mo family's uncle and nephew left the arena, they quickly came to a secluded courtyard. "Brother Niet Tian, we will live here." Mo Ihan pointed to the small courtyard in front and said happily, "Ihan, you go in first. I have something to say to Brother Nya." Mo Yanwei said in a deep voice, indicating that Mo Ihan should enter the small courtyard first. Mo Ihan glanced at Niet Tian helplessly and had to enter the courtyard first. "Mr. Mo, if you have something to say, please say it." Niet Tian felt Mo Yanwei's hostility, and his tone also became a bit cold. "Niet Tian, who are you?" Mo Yanwei's face was gloomy, and he asked in a cold voice, "Mr. Mo, whether you believe or not, I'm just a passerby. I just happened to meet Miss Mo." Niet Tian responded indifferently with a calm face. "Happened?" Mo Yanwei sneered and said, "Even if your reason is reasonable, what happened just now? Gue Shanquan is the Vice Palace Lord of Ghost King Palace. With his identity and strength, why would he be afraid of you? You have to ask Gue Shanquan about this." Niet Tian laughed, not wanting to explain too much to Mo Yanwei, and just joked, "He is willing to give me face. What can I do?" "Niet Tian, you sure have a lot of face." Mo Yanwei's eyes darkened, and his hostility became even more intense. Niet Tian laughed. He did not want to waste too much time with Mo Yanwei, so he said indifferently, "Mr. Mo, put away your hostility. I did hide some things, but those are my personal secrets. I am definitely not your enemy. If it weren't for me, would you be able to walk out of the arena?" Mo Yanwei's face froze, and he immediately became speechless. If Nye Tian had not appeared, it would have been impossible for him to leave the arena with Mo Yihan. He was extremely familiar with the arena of Ghost King City. If Gue Shanquan had activated the killing formation, even peak over gods would not be able to escape. Nye Tian, I will keep an eye on you, Mo Yanwei said grimly, and then he turned around and entered the small courtyard. Chapter 1645. Nye Tian strode into the courtyard and could not help but frown. He looked around. He suddenly discovered that there were actually experts' auras coming from those corners. It was obvious that they were experts hiding in the dark. Nye Tian sensed that there were at least a dozen peak greater gods and 2 lord gods hiding in this small courtyard, which wasn't very spacious. They were clearly protecting Mo Yihan and her sister. Just who are the Mo sisters? They actually have so many experts protecting them. Nye Tian thought to himself in surprise. To be able to mobilize so many high god and sovereign experts, the Mo sisters' identities were definitely not simple. In the entire god-shocking domain, perhaps only the 12 Divine Palace's forces could barely achieve such a feat. Big brother Nye Tian. Mo Lingshan appeared at this moment. She was extremely happy to see Nye Tian. She called out, "Where's the kitty? Let me hug it." Nye Tian was speechless. He could only take out the little golden monkey. "Big brother Nye Tian, my father wants to see you." Mo Yihan walked out from a room with a rather ugly expression and said softly. Nye Tian could not help but be stunned. He did not know that Mo Yihan's father was here as well. Mo Yihan's father was Mo Yanwei's elder brother. Mo Yanwei was already a late overgod, so Mo Yihan's father should be a peak overgod at the very least. Nye Tian was very confused. Why did Mo Yihan's father suddenly want to see him? Nye Tian followed Mo Yihan into the room. A tall figure sat in the main seat in the hall. Although his face was rather pale, he was extremely dignified. Mo Yanwei sat to the right of the figure. He was very polite. Nye Tian's expression changed when he saw the person. He was clearly Mo Yihan's father, but his presence was extremely weak. He seemed very tired, like a candle in the wind that could be extinguished at any time. "Big brother, he's Nye Tian," Mo Yanwei said when he saw Nye Tian walk in. "Nye Tian is really not bad." The man's lips trembled as he forced a smile and said, "I'm Mo Yihan's father, Mo Yuani." "Greetings, Mr. Mo." Nye Tian bowed and responded with a smile. At this moment, Nye Tian finally understood that the numerous experts in the small courtyard were not only protecting the Mo sisters, but also Mo Yuani. Mo Yuani was indeed very powerful. He was already a peak over god, but his body was very weak. He was basically on the verge of death. Nye Tian was very confused. Just what kind of illness could torture a peak over god to such a state? "Little friend Nye Tian, please sit down." Yuani smiled and motioned for Nye Tian to sit down, then said, "Yihan has already told me about you. Thank you for saving my daughter so many times. I can't thank you enough." "You're too kind, Mr. Mo." "It was nothing." Nye Tian smiled faintly. "It's not easy to force Gue Shanquan to compromise." Mo Yanwei sneered. Obviously, there was a hidden meaning in his words. He implied that Nye Tian had an ulterior motive for approaching Mo Yihan. Nye Tian's eyes narrowed, and his face could not help but sink. Mo Yanwei was just too cautious. He doubted him time and time again. There was no end to it. Nye Tian was not a petty person, but he was still unhappy when people doubted him like this. "Brother." Mo Yuani could not help but glare at Mo Yanwei when he saw that Nye Tian's expression was off. Then he looked at Nye Tian and said, "Please forgive me, Nye Tian. My brother is cautious by nature, and he's very cautious. Please forgive him if he's offended you." Nye Tian nodded slightly and simply stopped looking at Mo Yanwei. "Brother, if you could be like me and guard against people, you wouldn't have been harmed like this." Mo Yanwei was quite dissatisfied. He muttered and no longer spoke. Nye Tian was stunned. It seemed that Mo Yuani had become like this because of someone. Mo Yuani glanced at Mo Yanwei then turned his eyes to Nyetian and said, Nyetian, I presume you already know that Mo Ihan has the flowing evil sword seal in her body. Yes. Nyetian nodded in response. How much do you know about the flowing evil sword seal? Mo Yuani asked again. Not much. I only know that the flowing evil sword seal is one of the 3 ancient sword seals. It's very powerful, but I don't know anything else. Nyetian did not hide and said honestly. Nyetian had learned about the 3 evil sword seal from Fat Cat. The 3 evil sword seal. I didn't expect you to even know about it. Mo Yuani laughed and then asked, Have you heard of the 3 evil family? The 3 evil family? Nyetian stared at him and shook his head. Never heard of it. Fat Cat had never heard of the 3 evil family, but from the name, it seemed to be related to the 3 evil sword seal. Brother, you want to? Mo Yanwei was dazed for a second and then became nervous. But before he could open his mouth, Mo Yuani stopped him. Mo Yuani took a deep breath and said, The 3 evil sword seal is actually a kind of bloodline power. It is passed down through the bloodline. The 3 families that have the 3 evil sword seal are the 3 evil family. Nyetian frowned. This was the first time he had heard of such a thing. He didn't expect that the sword seal could also be passed down through the bloodline. The 3 evil sword seal was comparable to the 10 strongest seals. With the 3 evil sword seal as the bloodline power, the 3 evil family was too powerful. Mo Yuani nodded slightly and continued. In ancient times, the 3 evils family was an allied family. The 3 families joined together to form the 3 evil sword alliance. At that time, the 3 evil sword alliance was the strongest force in the 9 realms, equivalent to the current Wind and Cloud Alliance and Xingtian Alliance. But later on, the 3 evils family broke off, and the 3 evil sword alliance split into 3. The swordsmen of the 3 aristocratic families began an endless battle. Generation after generation of swordsmen died. As the number of genius swordsmen decreased, the Sanxi family quickly declined. Although the tri-evil sword seal is a bloodline power, there are very few people who can inherit this bloodline. Even if one has the 3 evil sword seal in his bloodline, it's not easy to open the sword seal. The activation of the tri-evil sword seal requires the help of a swordsman who has already activated the sword seal. However, the number of swordsmen who can activate the 3 evil sword seal is getting fewer and fewer. Therefore, among the descendants of the 3 evils family, there are fewer and fewer who can activate the 3 evil sword seal. By now, the number of people who have activated the sword seal in the Sanxi family can be counted on 2 hands. At this point, Mo Yuani smiled bitterly, and his expression became gloomy. The 3 evils family had fallen from its peak to its current state. It was indeed lamentable. After listening to Mo Yuani's words, Nyetian couldn't help but frown. It seemed that the Mo family was one of the 3 evils family. Since the 3 evil sword seal was a bloodline power, then the power of the sword seal must be divided into strong and weak ones. He didn't know how strong Mo Ihan's evil flowing sword seal was. According to Mo Yuani, it was extremely difficult for the 3 evils family to open the sword seal. Then how did Mo Ihan open the evil flowing sword seal? Ihan's evil flowing sword seal was opened by the Ghost King Palace Master. At this time, Mo Yuani knew what Nyetian was thinking. He smiled faintly and said, When Ihan was a beast, the evil flowing sword seal in her body was found to be very strong. When she was 1 year old, I received news that the Ghost King Palace Master could open the 3 evil sword seal. So I brought her to the Sanluo Ghost Domain to find a way to ask the Ghost King Palace Master. In the end, the Ghost King Palace Master helped her open the evil flowing sword seal. So that's how it is. Nyetian's eyes narrowed. He didn't expect the Ghost King Palace Master to be so strange that he could open the 3 evil sword seal. The next moment, Nyetian suddenly thought of something. His expression changed, and he asked, Mr. Mo, you came to the Sanluo Ghost Domain again. Is someone trying to open the evil flowing sword seal again? Yes. Mo Yuani nodded. Chapter 1646. Mo Yuani admitted that the Mo clan had come to the Sanluo Ghost region to activate the 3 demonic sword seal. Nietian was stunned for a moment before he realized that it was Mo Lingshan who wanted to activate the 3 demonic sword seal. Mo Yuani and Mo Yanwei were old, so there was no point in activating the 3 demonic sword seal. Mo Yihan's 3 demonic sword seal had already been activated, so the one who wanted to activate it had to be Mo Lingshan. Recalling the way Mo Yihan looked at Mo Lingshan, Nietian finally understood. Yes, Mo Yuani nodded and did not deny it. When Shan was born, the 3 demonic sword seal in her was detected to be stronger than Yihan's. However, Yihan was too weak to help her activate the 3 demonic sword seal. Now that the Ghost King Palace Lord is getting married, the Ghost King Arena will open again. This is an opportunity for Shan. So, Mo Yihan ascended the lower god arena for Mo Lingshan. Nietian said with a faint smile before Mo Yuani could finish. Mo Yuani nodded again, but then he smiled bitterly and said, "Unfortunately, Yihan is very unlucky to have encountered the cultivator with the other eyes." Nietian also laughed and said, "It's not that Mo Yihan is unlucky, because that cultivator with the other pupils originally came to kill her." Huh? Mo Yuani was stunned and his face froze. Nietian smiled faintly. It seemed that Mo Yihan had not told Mo Yuani about Duguanai. Nietian briefly explained the matter of Dugani's pursuit of Mo Yihan and asked, "Does Mr. Mo know why Duguanai and the others are after Mo Yihan?" "These people are here for the Mo clan." Mo Yuani frowned and his eyes trembled. Could they be from the Ouyang clan? Ouyang clan. Nietian's eyes narrowed and he asked, "This is the other 3 evils clan, right?" "Yes." Mo Yuani nodded heavily and said, "Of the 3 evils families, only the Mo family and the Ouyang family are left. There has been no news of the Ji family for tens of thousands of years." Nietian's eyes narrowed again as he made a mental note. The Mo clan, the Ouyang clan, and the Ji clan were the 3 evils clan. Mo Yuani sighed and continued, "The enmity between the 3 evils family is so deep that it can't be resolved. Both sides want to destroy each other. It's not strange for the Ouyang family to hire people to kill the Mo family. Big brother, the Ouyang family has never had any contact with the outside world. It doesn't seem like their style to hire an assassin to kill a member of the Mo family." Mo Yanwei, who had been silent all this while, suddenly said. Mo Yuani frowned as he pondered, and his eyes flickered. After the decline of the Sengxi family, they had less contact with the outside world. It did not seem like the Ouyang family would hire an outsider to do it. "Mr. Mo, is there a short and thin martial artist in the Ouyang family? His martial technique is very strange. He can turn into a flying disc and release sword images that fill the sky." At this moment, Nietian suddenly recalled that before Duguanai and the others appeared, there was a short and thin martial artist who came to kill people. He could not help but ask, "Ouyang Can?" When Mo Yuani and Mo Yanwei heard Nietian's words, they were stunned at the same time and exclaimed. Nietian frowned and immediately understood. The short and thin martial artist he saw earlier was called Ouyang Can. He was a member of the Ouyang family. From the looks of it, Duguanai and the others were not assassins sent by the Ouyang family. Nietian laughed strangely and told them about Ouyang Can's appearance. Then, he said, Ouyang Can left before Duguanai and the others arrived. They did not know each other, so they were not together. Little friend Nietian, are you saying that Duguanai is another group of people who want to kill Ihan? Mo Yuani's expression became obviously nervous. He said, "Our Mo family does not have much contact with the outside world. We don't have any enemies." Nietian frowned and let out a long breath. He said, "I am afraid that Duguanai and the others came for the evil flowing sword seal." Evil flowing sword seal. Mo Yuani and Mo Yanwei were stunned at the same time. The former said, Ihan's evil flowing sword seal is a secret of the Mo family. Apart from a few core members of the Mo family, no one else knows about it. Who is behind Duguanai? How could they know about Ihan's evil flowing sword seal? Nietian shook his head slightly. He was also very puzzled about this. Dugu and I personally mentioned the evil flowing sword seal, so it was obvious that he came for it. Even Fat Cat only knew about the evil flowing sword seal after the fact. It was impossible for Dugu and I to perceive it. Moreover, Mo Ihan definitely did not appear before. So how could the evil flowing sword seal be exposed? If there is no traitor in the Mo family, then there is only one possibility. At this time, Fat Cat's voice suddenly sounded. With a strange smile, she said, "The person who leaked the evil flowing sword seal is the person who helped Mo Ihan open the evil flowing sword seal. Ghost King Palace Master." Nietion's face suddenly changed, and he exclaimed. The Mo brothers were also stunned. They looked at each other and immediately understood. They said in surprise, "Could it be that Ghost King Palace Master leaked Ihan's evil flowing sword seal?" "Big brother, this is very likely." Mo Yanwei's face slightly changed. He said, "Apart from a few core members of the Mo family, only Ghost King Palace Master knows about the evil flowing sword seal. Therefore, the person who leaked the evil flowing sword seal must be Ghost King Palace Master." This, Mo Yuani took a deep breath, and beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. It seemed that things were much more complicated than he thought. If it was really Ghost King Palace Master who leaked the evil flowing sword seal, didn't it mean that Dugu and I and the others were related to Ghost King Palace? Could it be that Dugu and I was from Ghost King Palace? Why did Ghost King Palace Master do this? After a long time, Mo Yuani calmed down and asked in a heavy voice, "Then I can only ask Ghost King Palace Master personally." Nietion's expression was strange. A strange light surged in his eyes. He suddenly asked, "If I defeat Ghost King Palace's ring master, can I see Ghost King Palace Master?" "Nietion, little friend, do you want to participate in the Ghost King Challenge tournament?" Mo Yuani was stunned for a moment and then asked. "Yes." Nietion nodded slightly and said, "To tell you the truth, I made a deal with Gue Shangquan. I must participate in the Ghost King Challenge tournament." In fact, even if there was no Gue Shangquan, Nietion would still participate in the Ghost King Challenge tournament because he wanted to see the 72nd wife that Ghost King Palace Master was going to marry. "Nietion, I don't know how strong you are, but the Ghost King Challenge tournament is not as easy as you think. Moreover, Gue Shangquan is an extremely sinister person. You must be careful when making a deal with him." Mo didn't know what kind of deal Nietion and Gue Shangquan had made, but he had some understanding of Gue Shangquan. He knew that this person was sinister and cunning. "Thank you for reminding me, Mr. Mo. I will be careful." Nietion smiled faintly. He certainly knew that Gue Shangquan was not a good person. Before in the martial arts arena, Gue Shangquan had already revealed his killing intent, which made Nietion a bit more cautious. He must take the next Ghost King Challenge tournament seriously. Chapter 1647. When Mo Yuani heard Nietion's question, he couldn't help but stare blankly. Then, he smiled bitterly and said, "I didn't expect Ihan to fail. We didn't prepare enough this time. It seems like we don't have a chance anymore. Moreover, the Ghost King Palace Master has ulterior motives. It is very likely that he leaked Ihan's flowing evil sword seal. As for Shan Er's flowing evil sword seal, forget it." Mo Yuani's expression darkened. Although he said that he would let it go, he was still unwilling to accept it. The flowing evil sword seal in Mo Lingshan's body was even stronger than Mo Ihan's. If she could activate it, her future achievements would definitely be above Mo Ihan's. In the future, the Mo family would very likely rise because of her. Mo Yuani was naturally unwilling to give up such a good opportunity. After all, the Ghost King Palace Lord did not marry every day. Who knew when the next Ghost King would marry? "Mr. Mo, I want to make a deal with you." Nietion saw that Mo didn't dare, so he suddenly said with a faint smile, "A deal?" Mo Yuani was stunned. Then he thought of something. His eyes flickered, and he hurriedly said, "Please say it." Nietion slightly nodded and said, "If I defeat the Ghost King Palace's arena lord, I can propose a condition to the Ghost King Palace Lord. I can ask him to help Mo Lingshan open the flowing evil sword seal." This, Mo Yuani and Mo Yanwei looked at each other in surprise. Mo Uni excitedly swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Then he thought of something and said, "Nye Tian, didn't you already make a deal with Gui Shanquan? Presumably, he also wants you to help him propose conditions to the Ghost King Palace Lord." Although Nye Tian did not go into detail about the deal between Nye Tian and Gui Shanquan, it was easy to guess. For Nye Tian to make a deal with Gui Shanquan and the Mo clan at the same time, Wumian was too unkind. Who said I can only defeat one arena master? Nye Tian smiled faintly, his face full of confidence. The Mo brothers were taken aback once again, and their faces were filled with shock. Nye Tian actually wanted to defeat the ring masters of both arenas at the same time. There were 3 divisions in the Ghost King arena: Demigod, Intermediate God, and High God. 3 arenas, 3 arena masters. The Ghost King Challenge Tournament did not stipulate that a martial artist could only participate in one challenge tournament. In this way, Nye Tian could compete in 3 arenas at the same time. He was 100% confident in the Demigod arena. With his strength, he was definitely at the peak of the lower deity stage. As for the intermediate deity arena, he was 90% confident that as long as there wasn't a martial artist more heaven-defying than Dugu Ni, he would be able to easily win. As for the High God arena, Nye Tian was also quite confident. Moreover, he also intended to participate in the battle against those monstrous High God experts. Even if he lost, it wouldn't be a big deal. At the very least, he could gain some battle experience. As long as his opponent wasn't a main god, Nye Tian would at least be able to protect himself. Nye Tian, are you really confident? Mo Uni calmed down a little and asked in a deep voice. I have some confidence, but not absolute confidence. Nye Tian smiled faintly and didn't say too much. He said, I can give it a try. If I fail, this deal will be nullified. What do you want from the Mo family? Mo Yanwei asked cold. He was obviously very vigilant. I haven't thought about it yet. Nye Tian laughed and said, but don't worry. My conditions will definitely be within the range that you can accept. Moreover, I will give you the right to refuse. If you think my conditions are too harsh, you can refuse directly. Mo Yanwei's face darkened. He became even more vigilant. Anyone would be vigilant when Nye Tian offered such generous conditions. All right. Mo Uni thought for a moment and agreed readily. Nye Tian smiled and nodded slightly. It's a deal. The 2 sides agreed and settled. In this way, Nye Tian would at least be the arena masters of 2 arenas. That night, Nye Tian stayed in the Mo family's courtyard. The next morning, he woke up early. Mo Yanwei was already waiting for him outside. Nye Tian, I will accompany you to the arena. Mo Yanwei nodded slightly, but his face was cold. Okay. Nye Tian smiled faintly. He obviously knew that Mo Yanwei was worried about him, but it was also good to have Mo Yanwei with him. It was equivalent to having a Lord-level guard by his side. Nye Tian and Mo Yanwei didn't waste any time and went directly to the arena. In the Ghost King Challenge Tournament, the arena of the lower gods was first opened. Only after a lower god arena master was defeated would the arena of the intermediate gods be opened. Then, after the intermediate gods were defeated, the arena of the superior gods would be opened. In the entire Ghost King Challenge Tournament, at most 3 martial artists who defeated the arena masters would appear. Each of them could propose a condition to the Ghost King Palace Master. In the past, the 3 people were all different people. There had never been a single person who defeated multiple arena masters at the same time. Nye Tian and Mo Yanwei arrived at the arena of the Ghost King City. It was the same arena as yesterday. The enthusiasm of the crowd was very high. The entire arena was full of cheers and voices. Nye Tian was not in a hurry to make a move. Instead, he watched quietly from the side. The Ghost King Challenge tournament lasted for 10 days. After 10 days, even if no one defeated the arena master, the tournament would still end. Nye Tian was not in a hurry. He was very confident in himself. He first sensed the audience and confirmed that Dugu Ni did not appear. He was a little disappointed. It turned out that he was looking forward to a life and death battle with Dugu Ni. Half a day later, the martial artists standing on the arena changed again and again. There were no heaven-defying characters. The most powerful person only won 10 matches in a row. Die! At this moment, a furious voice sounded on the arena. Then a fist shadow flew past. A figure was hit and sent flying backward. He died on the spot. Good. Well done. The crowd shouted in a frenzy when they saw this scene. Trash. The winner looked cold at the corpse on the ground. Then he looked up at the crowd and roared, Next, get down here and die. This person was very arrogant. It was already very good to win 7 matches in a row. Moreover, he killed his opponent in each match without mercy. Nyetian, are you still not going to make a move? Mo Yanwei stood beside Nyetian. He seemed to be a little impatient and ass-cold. Nyetian smiled faintly and said, Since you were so impatient, I will make a move. After half a day, Nyetian was also a little tired. It was time to make a move. His figure moved like a sharp sword. His speed was extremely fast, and he directly landed on the arena. Another challenger. Seeing that someone had appeared in the arena, the crowd became excited, and their eyes shone brightly. Nyetian, I really want to see how strong you are. And Mo Yanwei's eyes locked on Nyetian and said to himself. He had only heard from Mo Ihan that Nyetian's strength was very terrifying, but he had never seen it with his own eyes. Mo Yanwei did not believe Mo Ihan's words. He felt that a late-stage, mid-god sword-vein swordsman, no matter how strong he was, could not be that strong. Perhaps Mo Ihan, who had activated the evil flowing sword seal, could completely crush Nyetian. Because of this, Mo Yanwei did not trust Nyetian and did not have a good impression of him.